Peace. What's going on, fam? Hey, we got the presidential debate popping off tonight. Got the BTP team on deck. We're gonna listen in live. We're gonna give some analysis. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abbott, aka Mr. Just the Facts. We got my brother Logic, Dr. Logic Supreme in the building. We got my brother Josh in the building. My brother Ali is in the building. He just dropped off. There you go. So as soon as this joint go live, we're gonna get on it. So in the meantime, in between time, have some general discussion. Low general discussion. Anything y'all got on the brain?
Man,
oh man,
I want to see. I want to see what this is going to look like. I already know it's going to be row session Trump.
oh yeah, oh
You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? That's what he did the whole 2016. I'm really trying to listen to anything that may make sense on accident. It's going to be on accident if it makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
I want to give a shout out to the mods. I want to give a shout out to everybody that's listening in. I was watching John Oliver's early. I was watching John Oliver earlier. He does last week tonight. I'd rather enjoy his broadcast. I'm gonna send a link. We're gonna bring Brother Ankh and Brother Dre on as well.
No doubt.
Let them add on to the conversation. But while I'm doing that, I was watching last week tonight with John Oliver, and he really went in. He started with the whole thing with the Supreme Court seat. Matter of fact, that was what that segment was dedicated to. And from there, he started talking about representation among our people. They have to say blacks and Hispanics, of course, because that represents the majority of the voting bloc. So he was bringing up some startling facts, and I started writing some of this stuff down. And he was breaking down how 4 of the 5 past presidential elections, a Democrat had won the popular vote. So I was like, damn, that's not the will of the people. Welcome, Brother Dre. I was like, that's not the will of the people at all. The Electoral College, if my research, and it's been a while since I've looked at this, the Electoral College was set up under nefarious means by the right wing in this nation, who were then the Democratic Party. And he went on to break down that out of 12 of the past 20 years, a Republican was in the high office, a president. And then he started breaking down some more startling numbers. 15 states have 30 Republican senators, 15, which represent 38 million people. So that's all of these people in these 15 states, which is less than the total population of California, who only have 2 Democratic senators, right? Then he started breaking down how Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., almost half of Washington, D.C. being quote unquote black, hence the term Chocolate City, has no representation in the Senate, and yet they're paying taxes, which was one of the knocks on the whole semi-statehood of Washington, D.C. in the first place, that here you have people that are being taxed without being represented. And we know that the saying in this nation goes, no taxation without representation. And of course, if Republicans were in office, it would be a whole different dynamic. If the District of Columbia was majority, quote unquote, white evangelical, or Puerto Rico was majority white, people are not looked at as brown like the Mexicans are looked at in the United States of America. If it hadn't been made 2 states by now, it is a guarantee that under this Trump administration, those 2 would have been states under this administration. So, you know, I just wanted to start off with that because I thought that segment, I didn't finish the whole thing, but I thought that segment was a good look at representation. There was an article that he was citing from the New York Times. I'm gonna pull it up. If anybody wanted to speak to any of that, please just jump in. But this article, the title, right? The Senate, Affirmative Action for White People, and why it's time to make Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. the 51st and 52nd state. And this was published October 14, 2018. It says, the biggest racial preferences in this country have nothing to do with college admissions or job offers. They have to do with political power. And they benefit white Americans at the expense of Black, Asian, and Hispanic Americans. You know, we know at our expense that it is deliberate. And we can say that for Hispanic Americans, you know, if we're being fair, but our concern is our concern. These racial preferences are the ones that dictate the makeup of the United States Senate. Thanks to a combination of historical accident and racism, the Senate gives considerably more representation to white citizens than to dark-skinned ones. It allows a minority of Americans, white Americans, to wield the power of majority. The anti-democratic tendencies of the Senate are well known. Each citizen of a small state is considered more important than each citizen of a large state. It's a deliberate feature of the Constitution created to persuade smaller states to join the Union. Over time, though, the racial edge to the Senate structure has been much sharper for 2 big reasons. First, the states whose populations have grown the most over time, like California, Texas, Florida, and New York, are racially diverse. By contrast, the smaller states like Wyoming, Vermont, the Dakotas, and Maine tend to be overwhelmingly white. The Senate, as a result, gives far more special treatment to whites than it once did. The second reason is even more frustrating, but it would also be easier to fix. Right now, about 4 million American citizens have almost no congressional voting power, not even the diluted power of Californians or Texans. Of these 4 million people, these citizens denied representative democracy. More than 90% are Black or Hispanic. They, of course, are the residents of Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. Almost half of Washington residents are Black, and nearly all of Puerto Rico's are Hispanic. And he gets into a real chart, and he starts to basically break down how we only, as a Black group, have 75% representation, and how the Spanish-speaking peoples here only have 55% representation. I mean, he gives an excellent breakdown. There's another article that I have pulled up.
Before you do that, I just want to say you said a lot. You said a lot before this debate comes on, man. When what they're talking about, I don't understand kind of how the state of emergency of this gets to where it is now. When he's talking about preferential treatment for whites as far as congressional. You don't see a greater display of that other than Reconstruction. You understand? So now to me, I'm looking at this, they throwing Blacks in there. I'm hearing the Blacks, but to me, this is really a play for Brown. You know what I'm saying? This is a play for getting Brown more representation, because look at the numbers. We can't even squeeze true democracy out of South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, places where we we have historically have had large concentration of Black people. We read information, we broke down on these show several different programs on how we was disenfranchised and cut off from access and democracy. So until we fix that, we can go to Mississippi. We did a program on how Mississippi kind of baked into their state constitution a disadvantage, really, like, it shouldn't even be in the Constitution, right? So let me just say this. As long as there's still laws on the books from from Reconstruction era, Jim Crow era, I don't want to talk about no more states. We got to fix the states' constitutions right now. Until we do a reconstruction, that is not, because the Reconstruction was overthrown. So until we do a reconstruction to get our family in Mississippi the democracy that they deserve, our family in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Louisiana, Alabama, you understand, the democracy that they deserve, I can't really entertain no new states coming in. I really don't got time for Puerto Rico.
How do we address Chocolate City, Washington, D.C.?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's definitely needs to be.
I mean, Washington, D.C. does need to be addressed, but like I said, it's about priorities. You know what I'm saying? Like, how long D.C. been suffering, but look at the time frame. They ain't been suffering as long as the people in Mississippi been suffering. They ain't been suffering long as the people in South Carolina. I do think it needs to be addressed. I don't think adding new statehood is the answer right now. And so we still have Reconstruction era policies in these southern former Confederates. I still think they're Confederate states by culture and just not by name, right? It's not they're not officially Confederate states, but they still move in a Confederate way. Oh, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So we still have that issue in the South. So I don't see how we jump over that to go fix DC. You know what I'm saying? When, we still have these historical problems that have never been fixed. So I think we have to start with the old problems first. All right, add your audio. You got to add the audio.
Yeah, it ain't starting yet. I'm gonna just have it up so we don't actually miss.
So we don't miss it.
Of it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
you could have left it up.
No, I always forget the damn audio.
Yeah, and I also want to add too. We talked about this a couple shows, a couple programs. I can't remember exactly which show, but we were talking about the 5/5 compromise, not the 3/5 compromise, but the 5/5 compromise, where the manifestation of that today is the prison gerrymandering system, where you not only do you not, they're getting full representation of you and you getting no vote. So they got it to where you can't vote. You're in prison. They take you out of the district that you would otherwise be voting in, or your representation for you would be counted in. They put it in their district, and then they don't get. It's like in the slave system of the 3/5 compromise, they can only count 60% of the population for vote. Under the prison gerrymandering system, it's a full 5/5, where they get to count 100% of those bodies that are in prisons, that they move to prisons into the red districts on purpose. So like your representation is getting stolen. That's something that definitely needs to be addressed.
Yes, and remember, Josh, so Mississippi they had it to where a popular vote couldn't even win you a state race. A statewide race in Mississippi. You had to not only win the popular vote, but win the majority of the 122 districts in Mississippi, which is numerically impossible for Black folks the way they have it cooked up there. So we can get the representation if we fix some of these structural problems. I don't think adding more states is the solution. We need to fix some of the states that we already have, which it would be, like what we've been saying, forcing a new reconstruction, where we have to go back into these states, look at their constitutions, and say, you know what? Me personally, I heard Dame Dash say it, but I've been saying it. You know what I mean? Any law that was written and still in the books from the Jim Crow era, from slavery era, it need to be struck down. Why is it even still on the books? It don't make sense. This is a new day and time now, and all laws written during the old world need to be struck down. It's time to bring up a new Reconstruction era. And you know, to me, that goes hand in hand with reparations. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Yeah,
right.
because the formulation of new states is almost like a dodge. Fix the states that are already in existence. Then you can talk about new states. Because what the reason why I say it's a dodge is because now when you bring those new states, that might help the Democrats have an advantage, as far as when it comes to putting a bill for a vote. But when it comes to improving the material conditions of the people in those states that have been suffering the longest, which is the black um, residents in those states. None of that as far as none of that as far as adding a new state is going to fix any of that. So that is kind of a dodge. It's a dodge, and you're exactly right. We've said this several times. There has to be a new Reconstruction because we never had the old Reconstruction.
Exactly.
I'll call it deconstruction because Reconstruction turned out to be something else.
But we was Darity called it deconfederatization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have to have a deconfederatization because due to the fact that Reconstruction was overthrown, and it was Reconstruction was successful. You know what I mean? We never it didn't happen for us. We was excluded out of the Reconstruction. You know what I mean? And the Confederates through Andrew Johnson were able to take back power and exercise it almost exclusively. And, they just ended up legislating, pain and suffering right back into our lives. We talked about moving from private bondage to public subjugation. And that's what life was. That's what Reconstruction did for us. So we need another. That's not what it was intended to do. And you got all these so-called black Republicans for Trump talking about they're the party of Lincoln, but they're not talking about no reparations. They're not talking about no Lincoln-type politics, and they're not talking about Reconstruction for Black America, which was overthrown by conservatives. You understand? So, and before we start talking about adding, we got to fix what we already got. You know what I mean? So, so
who do y'all got? Y'all got who do y'all like better? Do you like Lucifer or Satan? Which one y'all?
That's exactly what it is, Josh. Lucifer and Satan. Hold on, who's the brother Drake? Come on, man. Introduce yourself to the people in the chat, man. Say something, man. Let us hear from you.
Hey, what up?
You on there?
Yeah, I'm just because Josh pretty much took what I was gonna say as far as the gerrymandering. When the article Abba just read, it's just a more sophisticated form of gerrymandering, right? So at the end of the day, I think the one thing that we forgot to say, even in that article, is just that American blacks are no longer considered citizens because of our wealth position. So if you look at the way they're gerrymandering to the people that they feel can support, not only through voting, but through actual financial constituency of their platforms. Obviously, we're not in that position. So if you look at the way they're maneuvering, right? So I remember I went to Washington, D.C. This was like 3 years ago. I had to go visit a friend. And the cab driver told me, he was like, I moved to D.C. because before the Obama administration, the average senator or person who was in the House only were in D.C. during sessions. They never lived there. He said, but now 80% of the House and the Senate actually occupy that metropolitan area, which brought up the actual Washington, D.C. economy, which you also see in reflection, or as we like to say, indirect correlation, pull down the black American black population, right? Because obviously once they moved out there, property value goes up, spending goes up, we get kicked out. And it's like a microcosm to the macrocosm of what you see in that article that Abba read. It's just them is a more sophisticated gerrymandering, because I think it was Brother Logic who said we got to fix it. They don't care about fixing it because they don't care about us. And that's, just the bottom line.
Yes. And so when I speak to fixing the problems, I try not to use they got to fix it, to try to stay away from the someone else. Like we're like, even though we're a handicapped citizenry, we're still citizens, right? So, right, what we're fighting for is to be repaired, right? That's why a lot of things just don't make no sense until reparations is manifest, right? Because we can't, like, we're like, we can't really play the game because we're injured. You know what I'm saying? So like we can't really, we some of the most talented people in the world, but our legs are broke. We can't really get on the court and do our thing. We're still players in the game. We're on the roster, you understand? But we don't have full capability because of the being locked out of wealth. In a capitalist society, that's what enables you to be able to compete. Ownership and capital, right? So we've been locked out of ownership. We've been locked out of ownership. We've been locked out of capital. So we're in here like public subjects, right? Subjects of the public will. And like we don't really get to influence the way that we could because of that. So that's why the nexus of all of our national politics, in my opinion, and of the position of our organization, Be the Power, is that reparations is the nexus of our national position, right? Acknowledgement, redress, closure. We have to have those things, right? Because of the nefarious acts on behalf of the state that put us in these conditions. So without that, we can't really play the game of government to full capacity, and we're handicapped, right? So
you mean to tell me that the platinum plan, the platinum chain plan, or whatever Trump is talking about, is it don't have no reparations, it don't have no transformative black agenda items in there? You mean to tell me Joe Biden's Jim
Lift every
Clyburn
voice,
10,
lift
20,
every
30
voice.
plan and all this kind of stuff? You mean to tell me that's not gonna move the needle? Come on, don't tell me that now.
Well, yeah, that ain't gonna do too much of nothing.
Right? Let me but like, let's just look at that. Let's look at this from a more how can we say, let's just look at it from a more esoteric thing, right? So you got one guy who represents big business, and he offering black people the platinum plan, which sounds like a brochure for bank loans, right? Then you got another guy who represents we care about you guys, but we care about everybody. So we're gonna placate to the fact that most of us are in church, so we're gonna lift every voice, right? It just don't make sense, because both of them are pandering towards either the fact that we want some type of material wealth and we want some type of opportunity, i.e. the platinum plan. The other one placates to like, yo, we've been locked out, nobody want to hear us, no one's speaking to us, so then we call it the lift every voice. It's just both ways of telling you that, like, yeah, you're left out. How are we going to help? So the one thing the platinum plan does more than lift every voice, at least it speaks to the actual citizens that they're placating to, where lift every voice is still a very vague, milquetoast, ingratiated plan to help people of color, not American blacks, not ADOS. It's literally just saying, yeah, black people, colored people, Mexicans, people with one leg shorter than the other. It's always another way to like tiptoe around the tulips about, because like you say, at the end of the day, the one thing the pandemic showed you, and I've been saying this way before, like I said, me and Antonio Moore was like parallel, because I was studying it before I even knew Antonio. But the one thing I used to say, I'm like, yo, we broke. Once I went over to Amsterdam and seen the quality of life over there, and then seen the quality of life in Germany, and seen the quality of life everywhere else, and I'm like, yo, in America, we're the richest country per capita, but we're always on the hamster wheel. These people on their weekends, they're on the water, they on the canals, they're chilling. And it's like, but they're not technically rich or wealthy. And then you start to see the parallels between us, who's always got to pay bills, always got to play this. We live in a time of timely obsolescence. One iPhone come out, you got to get another one. One iPad come out, you got to get, you rent a car, you finance a car, but for 5 years, by the third year, you got to finance a new one. So without wealth, without money, you're literally locked out. And one thing the pandemic showed is that $10 trillion myth out the door. If we had $10 trillion, then why are we worried about an eviction crisis? Another thing is show, and you can just look on your Facebook timeline. If you was really if you had $10 trillion in spending power, you would not be worried about a $1,200 stimulus check from your government. Period. So I mean, think about how many people you seen on Facebook. They're trying to kill us. The government's trying to kill us, everybody. Oh, and then the next post, where I check. It's like, all right, which one is it, bro? Are they trying to kill us, or is where I check? You know, and that's what I'm saying. So it expedited the Forbes magazine saying that in 2051 we'll be broke. We're broke now. Our wealth level is at zero now. Period. You know what I'm saying?
He has Glaude of ES Glaude of MSNBC, Eddie Glaude. I believe that's his first name, Eddie.
And he said
that Black American wealth right now, because of COVID and the dip that it's taking, he said that it could possibly go back to the civil rights era, the 50s and the 60s. So, you know, we're witnessing an unprecedented time that for us financially are people who are already strapped, and you get hit with something like COVID, and Allah forbid you got child support. Whatever stimulus money you was getting, that's gone. There are people
forbid you got a business and you can't get any aid, and you know all of your business. That's crazy. But go ahead.
That's a wrap. Yeah, I mean, businesses took the biggest hit. Some forecasts show that most businesses will not recover at all. So what does that mean for our businesses?
Yeah, even though our businesses were almost insignificant in the first place, not on a personal level, but on a national level, you know, and like the subtle differences between the wolf and the fox, I always say, is that the wolf wants slaves and the fox wants pets, right? So Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, they pander to the Black community with these pet-like policies. Oh, we kind of care about you. We're going to keep you around. We're going to let you, you know, stay around the house and sleep on the floor and subtle stuff like that. And then after y'all just, you know, expertly explain the wealthness and our wealth position here in this country, here comes this platinum plan, talking about offering up more toxic debt. He's going to avalanche $500 billion of debt onto an already wealthless group. How does that help us? That don't help us. That only exacerbates the problem. But you don't know it. That's Novocaine. You don't know you're suffering because you're numb to it. But you don't have it. Now you done took on loans that you can't pay back because you already see that's like nefarious predatory lending at the top, coming from the top of government. You want to prey on a wealthless group. You're gonna give, because all he can do on the executive level is really kind of direct the SBA and the FBA to kind of give out these it's subprime. This $500 billion of subprime garbage, right to the people. And you got these Black conservatives clapping it up for this. Like it doesn't make any sense. What about the endowments, right? What about Homestead, right? What about that? What I need a loan for? You still got millions and millions, hundreds of millions of federal land and grants that could be put into action. Why not work with a plan to, you know, start up a new Homestead Act for Black America, right? Knowing that we was locked out of the 168 million acres of land, or the 160 million acres of land that you gave to white folks almost exclusively, right? While at the same time you was stealing back the 40 acres in the mule plan that was given to us. So, I mean, what sense does that make? And you got people really wanting to say, well, we should give the Republicans a try. Well, I don't think that we should be looking at it in terms of which party should we give a try. We have to be focused on policy, and we need to be not only focusing on trying to turn the problems into solutions, but create the solutions for the problems. We too busy, in my opinion, focusing on trying to get people to move from their position where they're already at and come to where we are. We can't do that. We have to elevate the people. So we have to know we're the underdogs. Underdogs do win. We have to have an underdog game plan and say, we're going to throw political upsets all across the country. We have to get the upset by any means necessary, right? We have to all, whether it be political consequence, whether it be social and economic unrest and instability, like we have to do it, or we're going to be extinct. If you want to die out as a group of people, then just do what you've been doing, because that's where the what I've been doing path is leading. But if you want to do the things that are going to bring about transformation and survival, we're going to have to offer these consequences, and we're going to have to be the solution and not try to ask the problems or demand the problems to evolve into the solutions for us. What am I talking about? I'm talking about we can't go to the sitting senators and sitting representatives and those individuals and try to convince them that we have that to come closer or to adopt our Black agenda. In my estimate, it's not going to happen, right? We have to offer political consequence. We will vote you out of office. You won't be a senator, right? You need our votes. We're going to run against you. We're going to make it hard for you to even be in office, right? And you're going to be so hard and so worn out from fighting us. If we don't beat you, you're going to feel beat. And then you're going to come to us. We ain't going to have to come to you. So that's like our game plan. You know what I mean? It's that's the only play for an underdog. You know, we don't have money for super PACs. We don't have money for the big lobbyist companies. We don't have it. We just say here, we can't talk about how wealthless we are and then be like, well, we need the lobbyists. We need the super. We don't have it. We don't have it in the way that we need it for national transformation. What we do have is votes. What we do have is people. What we do have is boots on the ground. What we do have is grit. And we have to use that. What we do have is social media, and we have to use that. And we have to come together, right? And move like that. We can offer political consequences. We can. What do you think King and them were doing? King and them were offering economic instability. Like they was disrupting the economic and social system. Remember that documentary? King had went up to Chicago and Mayor Daley had to call the president like, yo, man, get him up out of Chicago. We just trying to get back to business. He was disrupting everything. Business ain't flowing. What's going on? And that's how he got the fair out. He got them to come together for the I forgot the name of that. Not just Operation Breadbasket, but there was a housing deal that he ended up getting them to come to the table and agreeing on as well. So those are the type of tactics and those type of political maneuvers that we have to do, and it's the only way to get things done.
Indeed.
It looks like they're about to start, right?
Yeah, it's looking like they're about to start. So I'm gonna unmute Chris Wallace, and y'all, everybody else, I guess, can mute out. I'm gonna mute out, so I don't have no background noise going on. Can y'all hear?
And the questions in each topic,
Yeah, I can hear.
I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the two candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all four debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden. I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the two candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols.
How you doing, man? I'm well.
Serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all four debates. Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight: why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way.
Wow.
Yeah, what happened? Okay.
Have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump,
That don't make sense.
same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February. All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly
knows
going
that.
to socialist.
Go
You're
ahead.
going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won, were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said, and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
Now. I am,
and they're going to dominate
party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the Democratic Party is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me about this.
I'm happy to talk about this.
And if you were here, it wouldn't be 200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You didn't want me to ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
all right, gentlemen,
Europe, which was heavily infected. You would have been much later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're not
President, as a moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
why is it on the ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the court.
I don't think so.
In the court. Well,
there's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
and
just
you don't know her view on Roe v. Wade. You
I don't know
her view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot.
Damn, Trump winning early.
On health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a big chunk of
Obamacare.
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris, that was the worst part of Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like you,
and we will protect people.
President, I'm the moderator of this debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer.
Go ahead.
You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare. And just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump healthcare plan?
Right. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against big pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care. All of the things that we've done, insulin, I give you an example, insulin, it was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth, so cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because they pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say, this is open discussion.
No,
let me ask you about,
this is big stuff.
Sir, you'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is not.
And well, I can ask you the question. It will
Not what
end.
your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you agreed with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto, we call it. And that gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
are you saying you didn't agree?
That's his game plan. He's going to interrupt every good point.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm here standing facing you.
Pocahontas would have left 2 days early. You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to do is
Super Tuesday. You got very lucky.
Here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight.
Yo, is he talking about
I'm going to make sure, because here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just want to make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make sure.
Mr. President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be surprised.
You pick
You'd be surprised.
the wrong guy, the wrong night at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let him.
There is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
Absolutely agreed
folks, do you have any idea what this clown's doing?
They call it
Mr.
Do you
Mr.
have any
President.
do?
He called him a clown.
Called him a
Oh
clown.
shit!
He is not for any help for people needing health care because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them better health care at a much lower price. Because
and by the way, he
Obamacare
doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a plan.
fixed it to an extent.
He has never done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably does.
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the same time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better. And I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed that. They shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people. Okay. I said, you got to run it so well. And I just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive. Premiums are too high, and it doesn't work. So we do want to get rid of it. Chris, we want to get rid of it.
I understand it, sir, but I have to give you roughly equal time. Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive
Man, this
that have
dude's
no
crazy.
power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right, I have one final question for you,
Sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take in that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question is
the Supreme Court justice, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so,
list?
Right, gentlemen, I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
We have
I'm not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure do.
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
Oh,
All right. The
Damn.
second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject. So
Yo.
let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan.
Wrong.
I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000. And one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I
Damn.
know how to do the job. I know how to get the
Oh,
job.
my
Well, you didn't do
goodness.
very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no economic recession.
Sir, you made a
There was no recession.
You made a point. Let him answer.
And there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far more
many
people.
people?
Far more people.
And
you would have been.
And by the way,
your
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't
we
trust
Dr.
Johnson
Fauci.
Johnson, Pfizer.
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen, let me move on to questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call them.
The head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
he said it's a possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be after
when it's
that.
Generally available.
We're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up.
Trump is crazy, man.
Soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day.
Wow.
This is the same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous.
He did
like
say
a
that.
miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the same man.
That was said sarcastically.
That was
you know that.
I
was said sarcastically.
So here's the deal.
Killing him.
This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
You'll have the vaccine sooner
I want to pick up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't, or Senator Harris is saying you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can't trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust.
She said the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not, they're the people, and by the way.
I spoke to the scientists that are in charge.
By the way.
They will have the vaccine very soon.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died. And a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
So,
Mr. President?
did you use the word smart? So you
Killed
said
the
you
Oh,
whole
my
went to
God.
Delaware State, but
Here
you
we
forgot
go.
the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that
Oh
word.
my
my
God.
Because you know
Oh
what?
shit.
There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done
Well, let's
nothing.
have this debate.
And if
We'll
you
see
would have
who's
had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
You see,
and
he-
it's
We're going to
going
get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
okay.
It's going up fast. I
Okay.
look forward to talking
When it
about
comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is
Yo,
going to
this
affect
food is good,
how the
man.
virus
What's
is
wrong with
handled
you,
going
man?
forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to
Tell
provide
that to
them
Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Oh
Well,
God.
he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to
The-
Nancy
the-
Pelosi and Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a
Yo,
plan.
Biden got to get
He
some
won't
more
even meet with them. The
fortitude.
Republicans
man.
won't meet with him in the
He's not
Senate.
gonna
And
get
he sits in his golf course. And well, I mean,
Nah.
literally,
Okay.
think about it.
You probably
All right,
play
think
more than
about
I
it.
do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country,
Oh,
and I want to keep it open. And we
You
did a
ju- he
great
just
thing by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute,
Let
Joe.
him
Let me
finish,
shut
sir.
you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election
Oh,
on
yeah.
November
I want to
3rd.
move on to another
Because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to another
I gotta
subject.
respond.
But
wanna
those
move-
states,
gentlemen, I
those
wanna move
states
on to
are
another
not
subject.
doing well that are shut down
Which is
right
gotta
now.
respond to that.
Wants
President
to shut
Trump,
down the
you
whole
have
country.
begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are
of
okay. You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I
Just
wear
like your
masks
rally.
when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say
Vice President Biden, go ahead,
Dude,
sir.
crazy.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The
But I
Congress.
was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've also
And
said
no serious person said the opposite.
They've
No
also said, well, look
serious.
at
I wanna
Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did
I
not
want
say
to
the
ask you, we
opposite.
got a
said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
Masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir. Agreed.
I hope they ask
Vice
about
President
Herman
Biden,
King.
you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with.
What's
Wait.
true? Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You goes first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
and
not worried
hangars,
about
and we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous
King.
crowds,
Herman
as you
Cain.
see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay. By the way, did you see one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative effect.
No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect. And we've had 35, 40,000 people at these rallies.
Just quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would.
Damn, buddy, you missed the opportunity. Supposed to say Herman Cain.
Handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encourage them not to.
All right.
Ben, he's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should.
Not the China plague.
China plague. Yep.
Again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down and now we're reopening and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question,
the numbers are spiking in New York City.
You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's just the wrong step. I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools, why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. Well, we are going to get to...
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, people want their schools open.
Great
They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants.
He not letting Biden get in.
What's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York.
Funny.
People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful.
Safe.
But they want
People
their
in New
schools
York
open.
want to be
I'm
safe,
the one that
man.
brought back
He's
football. By the
bugging.
way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me.
This
and
dude said
I'm
he
very
brought
happy to
back
do
football,
it.
y'all.
And
All right,
people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know
We're
how
going
I
to get
found
back.
out? When he took
Gentlemen,
a phony
we're going to
ad.
get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went, you'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good. And we have a very, I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking
company.
you a specific question, which is.
Let me tell you.
I understand all of that.
Release your
I
tax
understand all of that.
return.
No, Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of
All
dollars.
he has to do is show it.
And you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see
When?
it. But let me just
Inshallah.
tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits like the
I
hotel
knew he was going to
on
say that.
Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the
I
man
knew
got
he was
fired
going to say
right
that.
after that happened. But
Vice
that's
President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who in fact need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe, I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
Oh.
We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including
Gentlemen.
fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession?
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make the federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy is
Mr. President, Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for the American people.
But let me,
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't booming.
He blew it.
It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when, in fact, when there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse me, Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you were number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We did not.
Standard fare.
I'm the guy that brought back the automobile industry.
All right, let him.
We brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. In fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having
and they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch, down 18%. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Barista to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true. Let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really?
Totally,
Mr. President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
he got $3.5 million.
That is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President.
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr.
The only
President.
guy that
Yo, Trump is
he
on
doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally discredited and
The media.
by everybody.
Yep.
Well, by the
By the
media,
media,
by our
because they refuse to
allies,
talk
by the
about it
World
because they're
Bank,
embarrassed.
by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me ask you this, Joe.
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
People under
He got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I did
really?
it
I'd like to know
honorably.
who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list
I'll
of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't
Well,
do a good
here's
job. With you,
Go
they
ahead.
said-
Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey,
this
let me just
person.
say, Joe.
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply.
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million
It
from
did-
Moscow?
Look, here's the deal.
Yo, he won't.
Families and ethics. I don't
This
want
is-
to do that.
I've never seen anything like
Family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already.
family,
No, let him go.
my
Let him
family
already
lost
wrote.
a fortune by
Go ahead.
coming down and helping
Go
us
ahead.
with
Go ahead,
government.
sir.
And that's such a.
they're right
Go
here.
ahead, Mr.
That's such a
Every
great.
single one of them lost.
This
a
is not
fortune
about
by
my
coming and
family or
helping
his
us with
family. It's
government.
about your family,
They
the
didn't
American
make
people.
$3.5 million
He doesn't.
nothing.
That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about.
you
here.
should
All right,
Take
that's
it
the
out
end of
here.
that's the end of the
Shouldn't
segment.
take
We're,
the money.
we're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice
it's a
President,
but Chris,
no,
can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
No,
He stood up.
No,
He stood up.
the answer to
and
the
he
question is
threatened
Big
no.
crazy. That's what's
No,
going on.
Sir,
with $1 billion. If you
That
get rid of
is
the troops,
you know what,
absolutely not
stop.
true.
doing
This
it.
You're
man
gonna have-
is a maniac.
gentlemen,
We're in a
I
lose-lose.
hate to raise my voice,
He's
but
on
it seems
tape.
to be, why shouldn't I be different than the two of you? So here's the
Got a
deal.
good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President,
Yeah, right.
anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Well, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than
What?
no, less than you.
Yo, Trump is
Please
a
continue
nut,
on.
yo.
The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is who's
now,
sir.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all.
I thought he was going to say this man is the devil.
Nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about.
So
You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So
Killed them.
President Trump,
He
you have
killed
2
them with
minutes.
that.
Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
he
racism?
did a crime bill, 1994, where you called them super predators, African Americans are super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe. So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990s. If you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks
This
in this
should be
country?
easy for him.
There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples that occur. When they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor.
That's not true. I don't know about that.
It's a weak
System
response.
where people are held accountable.
Who told them
And
to
by
say
the
that?
way,
That's the
violence
stupidest
in
thing I heard.
response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of the town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place,
that
and you
is
say
not
peaceful
peaceful.
protest?
President
No,
Trump,
it's
I'm not
not,
asking-
but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the
Yes,
issue
go
of
ahead,
race. I
please.
promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order
Please.
in a moment.
Fine.
This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else.
Radical,
and he would know.
What is radical
totally
about racial sensitivity training?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's racist.
You just don't.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this than he does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know they don't want to.
What is oppressing them?
Hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholic like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places.
The nerve.
Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now. But the reason
Louisville,
the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
you
crime,
still haven't mentioned. Are you in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow.
Are you in favor of law
You
and
should
order?
ask him about the secret.
You ask a question, let him finish.
Law and order. Law and order. Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more than ours.
All right, we're now. Mr. President, you're going to. Mr. President,
every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk
That
about
in his
law and
week.
order.
We had trouble. We're Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly my
He
question.
should
There
have
has been a
brought up the
dramatic
Central
increase
Park.
in homicides in America this summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200% crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've never seen.
He wouldn't know a suburb unless he took a
Suburbs
wrong
will be gone. Wow.
No,
Go ahead, wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's
that was a good catch.
Driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. Yeah. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean? And do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean? And
He definitely doesn't support defunding.
Call for for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers.
See?
As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding in his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support.
Look,
he has no law enforcement
that's not
support.
true.
Almost
that's
nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead. Think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
Think about it. Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported you.
Gentlemen, I think I'm going to take back the moderator's role, and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests.
He's doing him the way he did Hillary.
Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is, as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it.
But you've never called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You have never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Oh,
really?
Here's the thing.
I sent in the U.S. Marshals to get the killer of the young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals. They took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that. And so here's the, but here's the point. The point is that that's what he is, keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, and every single solitary time.
And to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
No, you have repeatedly. No, you've been talking back
and forth. You made a statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir,
I would love to end it.
You know, if you want to switch seats.
We could very quickly
do that, but
the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups.
Trump is moderating
tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland.
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared to specifically
do it? I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to
see.
Do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
white like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing.
director.
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Not militia. That's what his
it's an idea.
FBI. his FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna,
you know what?
No,
He's
no, we're
wrong.
done. We're done, sir. We're moving on to the next.
Everybody
We're moving.
put
When a
your
bat
advice
hits
in
you
your
over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is bad.
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas. that are-
Antifa is a dangerous,
All right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When a
in 2
president,
seconds.
I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges, because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill.
Vacancies.
When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left
That's a fact.
120
That's a fact.
openings.
They set it up
Member
for him.
of his party, because
The
they have a
same
little
thing.
different philosophy.
This
I'd say
is
if you have
WWF, man.
us 128 openings, you can't be a good president. You can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you, because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term.
Fine, sir.
300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused the recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head to head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way,
Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word.
No, I'm not asking.
God.
It's a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes, you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers, my son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about
I'm
Hunter?
talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know, Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know,
got
Bo.
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He
for
wasn't dishonorably.
cocaine use, and he didn't have a job. And he became vice president.
He going.
None of that.
Oh, he going
He
below
made a
the belt.
fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made a
son,
fortune.
my son,
He didn't have a job.
like a lot of people, we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he
Proud of
given
my son.
This is
$10
not a
million?
good
He
look.
wasn't given tens of
This is
millions.
not a
That
good
is
look.
totally,
President
totally
President
discredited.
We've already been
Totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial
So do I.
subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make
I know,
a
but when
judgment call
somebody
here.
gets $3.5 million
Okay, great.
from the
Let's talk
mayor
about-
of Moscow,
let's talk
That is
about-
not
I think
true.
it's a terrible
That
thing.
report is totally
Why did he get it?
discredited.
I
Mitt
Why did
Romney
he
on
get
that
it?
committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money. That report it was written for political reasons.
you know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally.
That's
We
because
haven't destroyed our businesses. Our
Nobody
businesses
wanted it.
aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors
What
are loaded up
businesses?
with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe
Who
about the
just
science
said
of climate
thing?
change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Do you
exciting. for a
believe
lot of people.
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of
I
this
think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But, sir,
That's burning down because of a lack of
But,
management.
sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car. And you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they've simply
No, but you
ignored
would take a lot of cars off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And and I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record. But I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all of the highways that we're going to be building.
Word, I want me a Tesla.
We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, make sure that he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that, well, the fact is, it's all true. And here's the deal.
Talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building. No, it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. You know, that's not true either, right? This is a $100 trillion. That's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're
not
going
the case. All right, let me
destroy our country.
Because I actually, wait a minute.
BS, MMT.
Have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good paying jobs, and these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them.
I never said that.
That's what he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can. Wow. hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now. Billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. That didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world?
He keeps going back to that. That's funny.
Russia does, India does, they all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is not my plan.
That's
the Green New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
You want to rebuild every.
If he knew anything about, if he knew
He
anything
made a
about,
statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
that is
What
not
he
true.
did is
You're
he
done in
said
this segment.
he called
Mr.
the
Vice-
military
Mr. Vice President,
stupid bastards.
I
And he
did
said
not
it on
say-
tape. He said
Mr.
stupid bastards.
Please,
He
sir,
said it.
stop.
I would never
I
say
would
that.
Play it.
Stop.
Play it.
Yo, this dude is a
President,
He's
answer
really crazy.
His final question.
The final
Whoa.
question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental
New
change
Deal.
will do.
The Green New Deal.
understanding political theater. White people are eating this up, dude.
We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you
We're going to
support
build.
the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support?
No, I don't support the Green
Oh,
New
you
Deal.
don't? Oh, well, that's a
You
big
let-
statement.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
Biden.
lost the radical left.
I support
you
the
don't?
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment. Election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks? Because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to
Take a middle note, poll watchers, family. We've mentioned that on
trying
this
to
program many
to
times.
scare
Poll
people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? Or you get 4 more years of these lies.
At the end of the day, that's what it's about, the votes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, There was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine?
There was no fraud in New York and New Jersey.
You have to have your ballot in by November 10th. November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that.
Sir,
all run by Democrats.
2 minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
You're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I don't think I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so, because what's happening is incredible. I read today where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them. We don't like them. We don't like them.
But what are you going to do about it? There are millions of ballots going out right now.
What you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people.
You go and vote. You go and vote
like they used to in the old millions of people.
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country.
There is no.
This is not.
There is no.
This is not.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Well.
Okay.
This is not going to end well.
5 states had mail-in ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this. Vice President Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me. Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots
I have a final
sending
question.
and swamping the system,
you
know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already
all
there's
right.
been
So now
fraud,
mail service delivers
wait a minute, gentlemen. And the final question is: in 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited currently by law. 8 states from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until election day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks,
could be months,
until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If
what
it's
is he talking about?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated,
he's signaling to people to go and be.
I'll tell you what it means. It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Yep, Gerard,
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until election day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And
I wonder if the Black Panther Party or the NFAC going to show up at the polls.
Somehow not fraudulent. It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
You had an opportunity to respond.
Look at Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what happened.
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president, not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event.
You think they're going to shake hands?
Sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. Will be 1 week from tomorrow,
they
October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night.
His wife came and shook his hand. The other dude's wife gave him a hug.
Thank you.
And thus the first presidential.
All right, family. I mean, it's a lot to. I mean, I can't even say it's a lot to unpack. It is what I thought it was gonna be. I don't use profanity.
What you mean? It was a shit show? That's what you trying not to say?
Basically. So
oh, there go my man Grim on.
There was there were some points that both sides made. Trump is gonna do what Trump does with how he just wants to get under your skin. He knows that works with his base, that worked with Hillary. The zingers is what they call them, right? So I didn't really hear anything substantive. He hurt Biden on points of a personal nature. What about your son with the 3.5 million? I believe that those types of things may unsettle some undecided voters. Maybe, we don't know, because he can't keep bringing this stuff up every single debate, or else Trump is going to look like he doesn't have enough to argue on when it comes to substance.
How he got in office in the first place. He just he never ran on anything substantive, not once, not ever. It's all he did. See, let me tell you, right? The majority of white folks are looking for this John Wayne type of figure, and he don't have to be smart. He just has to be able to like embody this like weird white, reminds them of somebody like Goodfellas type stuff. Like, he doesn't have to run. I think if we haven't learned anything, it's that Trump does not have to run on anything real. And I don't know why people are expecting him to just all of a sudden turn into a real statesman and have like real policies he's going to run on. That's not what he ran on in the beginning. That was not his win. Why would he switch it up? He has a winning strategy. He's going to continue to do that until it doesn't work.
We know from being in the Candace Owens group, we know exactly what those people are looking for, and he gave it to them tonight. That's a fact.
Yeah,
that is a fact.
What Ali's talking about is like something that we do is we troll these little conservative groups to see what they be talking about and just to check their temperature. And this is I can tell you right now, they absolutely thought their president did an absolutely wonderful job tonight. I'm sure they were drinking popcorn, playing beer pong, and all of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they was really feeling it. And that's all he has to do. Politics is about delivering the vote. He don't have to deliver no policy if his base is not looking for policy. His base is looking for rhetoric. They're looking for emotional feel-good speeches, what's going to make them feel good. They want him to articulate the things that they want to say. He didn't have to, it didn't matter about what the questions Mike was asking. All his base, he was talking about what his base wanted to hear tonight.
That's right.
His base and all the little QAnons and all the little crazies, they wanted him to talk about the money from Russia and Moscow mayor. They wanted him to talk about his son being, a cokehead and all of that. That's what they wanted, and he's delivering to his base. That's what politics is
about. I thought real quick, and I want everybody else to come in. I just want to say on Biden, I thought that, he spoke to the quote unquote white working class people who were probably Trump supporters in 2016. I thought he did an effective job in doing that, trying to use what they call pathos in the art of the fallacy. I think that he did that pretty well. I don't know if those type of people would be moved by the whole Hunter Biden $3.5 million. I don't think that they would be moved by that. But Brother Onk, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm gonna let y'all.
All right, I'm gonna mute you out, bro.
Oh, hold on. Let me go ahead. All right,
All right.
Yeah. So one thing important, they mentioned poll watchers. What Trump was talking about is not legitimate poll watchers. What Trump is talking about is exciting mobs to show up at the polls and do voter suppression. That's what he's talking about.
Yes.
Brown shirts.
Because being a poll watcher is not just somebody who just pops up and says, "What are you doing?" That's not an official position. A poll watcher is someone who the county official actually appoints them as that. That's something that they're doing. They're working for the party at this particular point. It's an organized position. It's not just I'm a poll. You don't just show up and say I'm watching the polls. I'm a poll watcher. No, that's called a mob. And this is like classic Confederate conservative voter suppression. They're gonna be proud. They're gonna. I'm telling you, this is gonna be a bloody thing, yo. And it's not
it's
about.
It's gonna get violent. It's gonna get violent. It's gonna, either way that it happens. If Biden wins, if Trump wins, it's gonna get violent either way, man. I don't see any way to avoid it.
No. I mean, they just set the dinner for what's going on. It's gonna be violent. And you can see it. They setting the stage for it, and it's purposeful. It's intentful. Like, and I hope y'all really were paying attention tonight, because nutbag Trump, he telling all they business tonight. And I'm telling you, it's all pockets on the same pants. There is no opposite sides. It's about the elite keeping the middle divided and keeping the actual country unstable. He said, y'all set this up for me. You hearing what he said? Obama gave me my taxes. Yep. Y'all left all these vacancies for me. Y'all did this. Y'all did this for me. Y'all could, Obama could have appointed all those. How you going to have over 100 vacancies anyway? And all you got to do is appoint them. He did that. That's a failure on Obama. The Democrats have been failing. And black folks want to stay captured and enslaved to this goofy party. We got to understand the Republicans and the Democrats are not for us. We have to come together and figure something else out. They not it.
That's right. Brother Grimm, what you thought, Brother Grimm?
Y'all tripping. What do you
Go ahead,
wait a minute, man.
Go ahead,
What? Okay, so the country never was for us, so we can understand that just based off by the way we got here, right? But they don't have to be for us because we don't demand enough. All right. So for me, it don't matter what the party is. The question is, can we come up with a demand and things that we need that will help our families be successful? That's the point. And so it wouldn't matter if it was Republican or Democratic to me. My point is, we need to learn how to ask for what we want and get what we want. We've seen the homosexual community do it. We've seen the way they did what they did, and they did a great job at quote unquote how would I want to put this? They actually the message that they had at first wasn't being accepted. So what they did was they went back and they fixed it. So what is it that we want? Right? What exactly do we feel necessary for our families to move forward? We need to step up to the plate and do that, right? And I'm trying to think of the title of a book that actually the homosexual community, it's on the actual movement that they did and how they got what they wanted to get. That's a great example for black people. I know you're saying, what are you talking about? I'm clearly telling you that we got to learn to ask what we want, and it don't matter which party it is. Whatever party gonna bring us what we need, right? Then that's the party we'll vote for. That's how you do it in North America. Simple as that. We ain't got enough people to start our own party. That's crazy. You got about what, 54 million African Americans in this country? That's not gonna work, right? But we got just enough, right, to figure out what we want. I don't even think we know what we want. Do y'all?
Well, I know exactly what we want, and we've been talking about it for a couple of years. You know, we have websites with it detailed, outlined. Books have been written on it, and I don't really disagree with what you've been saying. There's a lot of logic, and I can understand how you arrived at what you're at. And I've said it plenty of times. I don't have a problem with no one being a Republican or a Democrat. I'm saying that where I'm at, my personal estimate, and I've worked with the party, I've ran as a Democrat, been elected to office as a Democrat, and I understand how Democrats work, and I know many Republicans. What I'm saying is that, you know, we're in a strange time right now. It's not that we don't know what we want. We've been advocating it for a long time. We know what we want. The demands are out there. What I'm saying is, this rabbit hole is deeper than a lot of us are willing to commit to. And if we don't, it's not, the demand is only as good as the consequence you can back it up with. I can demand you give me all the money out your pocket. But if I don't have a weapon or some type of consequence to offer you, that is an empty threat, right? So we can demand politicians to do anything, and we can have the best and most specific claims and demands that we have. But if we can't offer some type of consequence, I don't think you was on earlier when I was talking about this. I was saying that we have to offer a political consequences. Anytime we ever got anything in this country, it was when cities were burning down. And I'm not saying burn down cities. I'm just talking about history right now. It was when cities were burning down. It was when the economic instability from boycotts and social disorder. And you had many organized minds and organized coalitions of, because I agree with you, we don't really have numbers to generate a national party that's going to be impactful. I agree with that. I don't disagree with that. I understand that mathematics. But what we do is have enough people to cause civil disobedience, civil social unrest, we disrupt the economic structure, the social structure. And to when America can't make money, they get funny. And then they start asking what's going on. And I talked about when Martin Luther King went up into Chicago and did what he did there. And they had Mayor Daley calling President Lyndon B. Johnson saying, please get this man up out here. And Lyndon said, well, he's your problem. You're going to have to sit down and meet with the man. So they met with Martin Luther King. They worked out. Martin Luther King left. That's our play right there. Is the only thing we can do is offer political consequences.
Indeed. What up, Grim?
Yeah, what's up, gods? Peace to all of y'all. Yeah, that was a goddamn shit show if I ever seen one. And let me tell y'all something, man.
Like sound at TV.
This country, man, bro, is in trouble, you know? This country is in trouble, man. And I'm gonna say this, man, and it might not go with the platform and it may be off code. But man, in many respects, if this country, man, follows this fool, you know, man, this country get every fucking thing, man, that it deserves. Because, you know, the majority of them in the communities that they appeal to actually believe and sympathize with this message in one shape, form, or fashion. The dangerous thing about this whole thing is not so much the politics between what Donald Trump says and believes and what Biden says and believes. That none of that stuff is the problem, because it's like where L was saying. It was like what Brother Ankh was saying. We should speak full-throated about what we want, ask for what we want, and get what we want to basically, man, improve our communities. But the danger in it is that he's not pulling a Reagan, he's not pulling a Bush or anything like that, right? Basically, what this guy is doing, man, is appealing to the most radical elements of his base. I think where L brought it up when he was talking about poll watchers. And when they said poll watchers, they said we need ready and quote unquote able-bodied poll watchers. So when you start talking about somebody being able-bodied, you basically calling for those militias. You calling for men that know how to fight. You know, you calling for men that know that's gonna be packing AR-15s with a K-bar on the side. You know, these are the type of people that he's basically riling up in his base. You know, and, I honestly think that if that was what he was trying to accomplish, he basically accomplished that tonight.
Indeed.
He talked about the law enforcement. But see, the law enforcement is the problem. You know, law enforcement is the problem because law enforcement recruits. And I want everybody to hear me on this. Law enforcement recruits and gets its personnel and its members from the very base or the very radical base that Trump is talking about. Is everybody in law enforcement like that? Of course not, right? But for the most part, those guys, those men and women come into law enforcement with these prejudiced, preconceived notions about our community. So, like, for example, in New Orleans, right? And everybody know what I do for a living. I'm not going to say. But most of the guys that serve this community here, a lot of these guys don't stay in this jurisdiction. A lot of these people live outside of these jurisdictions. You follow what I'm saying? Come into these jurisdictions and then judge our people and prejudge our people and treat our people unfairly and kill them. So really, man, the major problem with me for me in this whole election season is who is going to be in power. And as y'all can see, killings by police, killings by civilians, white civilians on other black civilians. That ain't no mistake. They being empowered by the spirit that this man is generating towards these things. That march in Charleston, this will be the last thing that I'm going to say because they brought this up. That march in Charleston, right? That march happened directly in relation to the fact that they champion was put in office. You know, so that's why. I mean, did y'all hear the part also when the moderator asked him to denounce those groups? He would say, "Call them by name. Give me a name. I'll denounce them. What name? What are they? Who? It was just a bunch of bullshit." So he would denounce those people, man. And I'm gonna say this, like, and I know this is another off-code thing, so y'all probably get some negative remarks in that regard. But I'm not a Biden fan. I'm not a Biden fan, right? I don't think that he's the man for the job. I think that Kamala Harris is going to do a hell of a better job in her debate. She gonna mop the floor with Mike Pence because she's a smart person, right? And I just don't believe that Joe Biden, looking at his performance with Donald Trump tonight, he's not the man for the job at all.
Yeah, and I can see them definitely. Well, that's what this has kind of been about. And as soon as they named her, as soon as she was named VP, I knew that this was about Kamala versus Trump. Even though she'll be debating Pence, this is Kamala's presidency. They found the way to just kind of force her in the presidency anyway. So she should clean Pence up. That's why they've been keeping. Where has Pence been? It's been harder to find him than Waldo. Yeah. Where is Pence? Yeah, Pence been hiding like where the hell is he at?
You know they talking about Biden hiding up. Pence really been.
I ain't even seen him.
Yeah,
so
man.
Probably gonna cook him, and then it'll be like who had the better debate, and they won't really be talking about Joe Biden. Joe Biden looked sleepy, Botoxed out. He was like, it's like they doped him up before the show to kind of look lively, and they kind of started wearing off, where he was coming in and out. Like it was intermittent. Like he was bad. Joe Biden was bad. He was not sharp at all. He just looked bad.
Weekend at Bernie's or something.
Yo, and see, but this is another failure from the establishment Democrats. Now everybody knows, even though I wasn't voting for Bernie Sanders, right? I like to analyze politics, but Bernie Sanders would have been way better than this. Bernie Sanders would have been way better than this. This is 2 times in a row the Democrats have failed on purpose. They cheated Bernie the first time with Hillary and the superdelegates. They cheated Bernie this time with that garbage they pulled in Carolina. You know,
let me say something. So now we really see the failure of a Joe Biden candidacy when you look at when they went to the topic of race, right? So you know that black voters are going to be 25% of your Democratic electorate. And, you know, the reason why Obama was able to win and the reason why Democrats were able to win in 2008 and 2012 is because Obama got them voters. And then he got some on top of the ones that wouldn't normally vote. That's the thing that they're missing. See, Hillary was not going to get those ones that won't go normally vote. Matter of fact, she made some of them that might have voted not vote or even vote for Trump. And I think the same thing is happening with Biden. So when they ask the questions on race, Biden gave all cringe-worthy answers. He gave answers you can tell he didn't even believe it when he said it. He already knew it was stupid and it ain't make no sense. But you see that he won't know better than Trump. You know, at least, you know, it's the way Trump goes hard for his base. You would think that Biden need to go hard for, are we supposed to be his base? Are we part of that base?
Right.
He's out completely. Whereas Trump, he was, you know, his base is the right wing and white supremacists. Yeah, he made specific dog whistle comments.
Yes.
When he talked about like what he came out with to kind of repudiate the 1619 project, he said it's almost like you're doing it in the reverse. See, he didn't say it explicitly, but what you knew he was talking about. He's like certain type of people. He meant white people, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing in reverse?" He talking about now we're being racist on against white people. See, we knew what he was talking about, but then when Joe Biden comes, he's coming with all this. Well, nah, Joe. If you not vote, you need to come on with it. You need to come on with it and say what need to be said.
He didn't even look like a man up there. Where was the testicular fortitude? He was just getting bullied up there. That's not going to cut it, man. Not in this.
Like I said, weekend at Barney's. He just sitting up there.
Yeah, not at the. He was a bag tonight. Not in this time tonight.
Man, he just missed so many points, man. Like when he was talking about my son, I was sitting up there. You know, when he was talking about Joe Biden's son, excuse me, I would have been up there. Yeah, coming from the man, I would have said something like this. Yeah, that's coming from the man who said he would date his daughter, and his daughter's hot.
Yeah,
you know,
like he didn't have
we would have been. Hey, man, if I was up there, man, we would have been going at it. Period, bro. But like Well said, bro, he didn't look like a man. He just looked like he was basically like doped up there, bro. And it was just like, you know, you had this time to prepare for this debate. You know what kind of savage this dude Donald Trump is. Hey, man, sometimes, you know, jab, you know, just like in boxing, jab, you know.
So you think savage up there?
Say again?
I think what Trump did was he had the conversation like any one of us would have had it. And that's why the American people like him, because he like the regular dude. He'll cut you off if you.
And I say that
he'll do all that. You feel me? So I'm saying he's a more likable person. Remember the question they asked about racism? Man, Trump hit him with the crime bill. He was like, yo, the crime bill, man.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like, how you gonna be high? See, like, how's Joe Biden thinking that he's supposed to get the black vote? True, you all this stuff on Trump. Trump just come back with, dude, you did the crime bill. Well, I guess you're right. You know, that's basically what he said. He didn't say that, but basically what he said. Yeah, well, I guess you know what, Joe? This is what you're supposed to say. Right. When Trump goes at your son, you're supposed to fry him. You're supposed to fry him, and you can take the high road at the same time. You're supposed to say, remove yourself from the picture and put the American people in your shoes and be like, do you see what this guy's doing? This guy is talking about my son.
Right.
Talking about my son, who my wife was killed suddenly, and we had a traumatic loss, and then his brother was killed. And then, as many children would do, they got addicted to drugs as a result of coping with that pain. I dealt with it, and this guy is willing to drag my son on the national debate stage. This is the person leading your country and being the person that kids aspire to be like. Like, yo, that's what you're supposed to say, and that's what your team is supposed to train you to say. That's how you handle those things. Well, he went up there, well, you know, that's not true. That's not, yo, you
right. You
need to fire everybody in your staff.
But let me say this, Josh. I don't think that Trump is a likable person, in my opinion.
He's relatable.
What I do think,
man, he's likable, man. Come on, man.
Let me say this real quick. What I do say,
man. Come on.
No. He's not a likable person.
Yeah, he's relatable. He's relatable.
Let me finish real quick. What I do think he is, I think that he appeals to the average white male psychology, the way they live their lives and the way they operate and they vibe in society. I believe they relate to him from that perspective. But to say that he's a likable person, I can't say that, because his behavior throughout his presidency and throughout all of his life indicates the fact that he's a narcissistic sociopath. And like, people.
You mean like Umar Johnson and them? You mean like Umar Johnson and them?
Oh, I'm not no fans of any of them guys. So I mean, I don't know.
That's the point I'm trying to make, man. The point I'm trying to make is he's a billionaire, but he comes off like a regular dude, meaning he's not willing to, quote unquote, cow down to the demands of black people. See what I'm saying? And so,
right. And he's saying the same thing. He appeals to that average white male psychology.
Hold on, bro. And he's basically saying that whatever it is you think you're gonna get out of me, y'all gonna have to earn it. He make you realize how much we ain't had in this country. See, that's what Trump do. He make you realize just how we never was really getting a whole lot of nothing anyway. He make you see that. And he come off as just, it is what it is. Like, I mean, whatever choice you got. He make you realize we need to step all the way up as a community and agree on certain things. See, Trump ain't trying to play the game like the Democrats is. The woe is me. We love African Americans. He say, man, look, I'm not that, but if you're willing to fight for what you want, I might give it to you. But I'm just not giving you nothing. See, that's how Trump come off to me. Like, I like a guy to say, I don't really, just like we don't really care for white boys. Let's keep it a buck. We don't really care for white boys. Let's be real. And he said, well, I don't really care for black people. But if you fight and make some damn sense, you know what I'm saying? At least I'm going to be the one to give you that opportunity. That's how he come off to me, bro. At least he honest about it.
Well, what Trump does is the way he argues, when you're looking at it straight from a theater standpoint, he makes you laugh. Like, I remember me and my wife were in the car. I was on mute and I was riding as we were on the show, and Trump was saying certain things. We were just laughing. Like, yeah, I heard y'all laughing on the show, but that's just kind of what he does. And when somebody makes you laugh,
that's important, right?
Yeah, it does something to you to where, like, psychologically you want to laugh again, or you look at the person in a different way. But at the end of the day, like,
a game changer, yo. You ain't never seen a regular president act the way he act. Yo, it's a game changer, man. And that's what being in America is about. Being a game changer, right? Wrong.
That type of energy attracts people who likes that type of energy. I mean, if you admire those things, in my opinion, if you admire those things in a person or a leader, then something wrong with you. And that's the problem. One thing Trump didn't lie about is this. He is receiving more support from black people than any other Republican candidate probably in recent modern history. You know why? Because some of our own brothers and sisters relate to that megalomaniac, sociopathic behavior. We was watching a video, the BTP squad. We was watching a video of some people they were asking Trump, and he was these brothers from the hood, and they was on the beach. I guess it was some type of a black beach celebration or something.
It was Florida. They was in Daytona.
Yeah, Daytona Beach, right? So they was like, hey, why y'all out here on the beach and y'all ain't got no mask? I guess it was a mask, dialogue. And the people, we don't need, and it was brothers, hood brothers. They was out there like, oh, we fucks with Trump. We fucks with Trump. So you go back and you look at some of the average history of hip hop records. A lot of people have idolized this man because a lot of people, like you say, relate to that behavior. But for me, that's a individual problem, because I can't look at that man and say, hey, this a man that I would follow or I would respect him. And let me interject one more thing, and then I'll get off. His pandering to the black community is not rooted in anything as far as
who you talking about?
Caring about the community or giving the community something. His interest in the black community only lies in the fact of his re-election for his own selfish purposes. Because if once this man get out of office, he in a whole lot of trouble with his taxes, with the debt that's due in 4 years, 420 something million. He has serious problems. He was saved by that show, The Apprentice. Now, that being said, that's his only interest in giving Black America anything. This man would say anything to stay in that office or to get into that office.
But is that not to be expected? We've seen that. I'm 53. They all do the same thing. So that's my whole point. Like, at least you know he on some bullshit when he want to be. I can deal with a criminal all that act like they're not a criminal, but really a criminal. I'd rather you put a gun in my face and say, nigga, give me that shit, than say, yo, I'm not trying to get you, and then steal all your shit out the back door when you leave. I'm saying I can deal with
That's
like
not
that.
what he's doing, though, brother. That's not what Trump's doing. He wants you to believe that he has the best interest of this country at heart, but he don't. He's not saying, nah, fuck this. This is how I roll. We go. He's not saying that. Everything that he's saying up there is a lie. It's a lie. It's two things. It's a lie and it's an appeal. It's appeal to his base because they go follow him regardless. He just want to make sure he's on code with them. But it's a lie, and the fact he's not telling us what he's going to do. He just want us to believe that the Democrats is all of this, the Republicans on all of that. The Democratic cities got problems. The Republican cities are these oases. It's all BS to me, brother.
He kind of he's pseudo. Don't get it. He's pseudo. He a little pseudo. He already conspiracy theory pseudo dude, and he anti-science, so it's kind of always like
talking about Trump.
Trump.
Go ahead.
Trump anti-science.
Oh yeah.
Well,
and notice.
So really, I'm saying I don't like none of them. But if I was gonna hang out with a dude, I'd hang out with Trump. We just probably cuss each other out at the end of the day, and then laugh at each other and walk away.
Well, he don't want to hang out with me. I'll tell you that. You don't want to hang out with me at all. I'll tell you that in a heartbeat. But
you'll hang out with Biden, yo. I couldn't hang with Biden, bro.
Biden wouldn't want to hang either.
Yeah, I'm just keeping it official.
Hey man, listen, Trump will hang with you, yo. You'd be surprised.
He'll hang. I'm trying not to.
Oh yeah, he'll hang with you. That's for sure.
Not to say nothing crazy.
I think Ali Bey brought it up, man. He said back in the day, man, Trump used to be at all of those parties with those hip hop stars and.
Oh yeah.
But I've never been one of them guys. I've never been one of them guys. We always had the so-called cool white boys. I never hung with them. That never impressed me. I don't care nothing about that. I was raised by Black Panthers and shit like that. That don't do nothing.
You one of them, huh? So you ain't that.
Yeah, that don't do nothing for me.
Come on, man. Come on,
it's not cool. I done did it all. You know what I'm saying?
You never played sports. You ever played sports?
Yeah, I boxed. I was a boxer.
No, I mean a team sport. Boxing, I get it. But I'm saying in a team sport.
We was on a boxing team. We made the Junior Olympics.
Yeah, but you don't need another boxer to help you do what you do. That's the point. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if you ever had a team sport, like for instance, when I was 9, I was on a team sport, Park Heights. Everybody know what Park Heights in Towanda is in Baltimore. And we had a white boy that was the quarterback. His name was Benny. He was a white boy, right? Jew. Okay? Man, white boy could sling that damn football. We won 2 championships. What I'm saying is, when we was involved in sports, you wasn't even looking at the color of the dude's skin. It wasn't even about that. I'm saying sports is an environment where the color of your skin don't matter. Sports is like the great equalizer. Like you black, you got a block for the white boy. I'm a receiver. The white boy got to throw me the ball. I'm saying so. It's serious. Sports is. Now if we could get the world to work like that, we know the world will work better if you know what I'm saying we work together like that. So what I'm saying is that it's important for our children to understand that there are certain relationships that you can have with white people and know where the hell to draw the line at. We cannot be afraid of white people.
Business relationships, and that shouldn't bleed into your personal life.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't have any white friends these days. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not saying that one day I wouldn't, right? I wouldn't necessarily say friends, but the environment I was in didn't necessarily allow for white friends. You know what I'm saying? Like it just wasn't the room. But I'm saying, but if I was a politician, if I was doing this, I might have some white friends. It's depending on what you're doing. I'm saying we can't be afraid. We need to look at all people. So black people get you real good because they look just like you. So I'm just saying we just need to really, really learn how. I think we are at a point now, especially us on this panel. We are intelligent enough to manage friendships. You get my point? Like you'll hear people say, well, the white man is this, white man is that. Come on, man. I'm smart enough to know who lying and who not, man. Just like we have a conversation right now based off of Craig. We know Trump is crazy, but I'm saying is, least we know he crazy. That's all I'm saying. Like, who the hell is Biden?
We know that they all crazy. We know that they all out of their damn mind. Biden's out of his mind. Trump is out of his mind. What I'm trying to do is make sure that we are not out of our minds. And any time that we start thinking that they're not who they are, we out of our mind. And any time we don't understand that the family is what we should be organizing around, and if it's not good for the family, then we're out of our mind. And so talking about what's cool and all of that stuff really don't benefit the family. Everything has to be organized around the family. You say you into science, I'm into science. You understand? Politics is political science. You understand? So we have to understand that first, that science of politics, and understand the mathematics of that thing, that everything has to be a benefit to the black family first and foremost. So I don't care if he's cool. I don't care if he's crazy. He is. I look at him like, can I work with this man to enhance my cause? I don't see a way to work with him.
Nah.
You're gonna have to though. You're gonna have to be able to work with both of them.
Look. Now understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we don't have to survive under him, and we're gonna have to work with what we get. What I'm saying is there's no partnership there. So we're gonna have to survive. There's a difference between working with somebody and surviving somebody's rulership. We're not working with Trump. When you're not working with him, he don't call you and say, yo, what you think I should do about this? He don't care. That's working with somebody. That's when I'm putting mine in, you putting yours in, we working together. He don't care about that. What we're doing is surviving a time where Trump is ruling.
And let me say this too. If the working with him, any of that would have came in this past 4 years, 3.5, 4 years, the first term. The second term, what do you need to work with us for? He can't get reelected again. It's over. That's why Trump is just a non-starter. Anything that Trump could do, should do, or say he's gonna do for us, he can just do it now. He should have been done it. You already the president.
This is my thing.
You could have been done it. There's no leverage there for us to have to do anything with him. Like, what does he need us for? He didn't already got reelected.
Let me say this real quick. Let's slow it down, because this is the problem, right? When you don't understand the science of government, the problem right now. See, we wanted to play the show the debate, because obviously it's a national moment. We want to see what's going on, right? But as black folks, the presidency really don't matter for us. All of the things that we have ever gotten on the federal level have come through acts of Congress. You understand? We have to have a congressional focus. That is what is going to make the most sense for us. The president, if let's say you got the best president in the world, he can't do what Congress can do for you. One, because he does not have the power to direct the Fed to fund anything. Congress in the Treasury to fund programs and issue money because the federal Treasury is a currency creator and they can fund anything that they want. We don't have enough seats in the Senate or the House. That is where the political power, the laws, the legislation, the president signs laws. He don't make laws and bring them into existence. We need policy. Policy is what and policy is the only thing that's going to fix us. We know more about Trump than you do your own senator, your own U.S. senator. You know more about Trump than you know your own U.S. representative. You know more about LeBron James than you know about all three of them. So this is the problem in black folks' life. It ain't the fact that, that we can't compete or we don't have enough numbers. It's we focus too much on silly shit and not the important shit. Anytime
now you talking, bro. That was my whole point. It don't matter whether you like Trump or not. That's my point. See, now you speaking my language. Now you actually giving the people the roadmap.
Well, this is what we do on Be the Power every week.
I'm talking about right now, man. Get out of here with all that. I heard a whole lot of beating up on Trump. I'm like, I don't know.
We'll continue to whoop on him.
Right. We gotta whoop on him just based on what we heard in the debate right there. You know what I mean?
We don't got to whoop on no Trump.
And all of that moves and all of that hairspray don't make them cool. I'll whoop on him.
You gave me hope, bro. You just gave the people some hope, though.
Gave who some hope? He gave them some dope.
I'm saying, actually, man.
He gave them some dope. He ain't get nobody no hope. He just told
not Trump. I said you. I said you.
Listen, brother, he told white America in code to go to the polls and beat people up. That's what he said.
That's what able-bodied mean. They take that demo back to the Reconstruction.
Yeah, man, come on, man.
The red shirts in the
I ain't talking about it. Hold on, man, stop. Ho. I ain't telling nobody go beat nobody up in no damn.
That's what he did. You just didn't. You didn't understand it. That's what he told him. That's what he told him. Huh?
I'm not messing with you on that. I'm gonna mess with you with the Congress thing and the bills. I'm gonna mess with that because I'm saying that's actually something that's very, very feasible and needs to be this generation's focus. And by the way, we ain't moving nowhere unless we get out there on money. That's my whole point.
Oh,
ain't no moving without that check. Ain't no wealth gap. Ain't none of that. You can't power through it. The president can't help you. Every generation needs to continue to focus on just cut the damn check.
Well, so you talking about reparations, huh?
You talking about reparations?
Talking about. There's no other way around it.
Yeah.
You can talk to black power all you want. You can talk to, we're gonna work together. You can't work together on that. They had 400 years of the global economy that funded the Industrial Revolution based off of free labor from Africans. We need our damn check. That should be the fight for every generation. I'm telling you now, that has to be out. The hell with all this, the hell with the president. They can put Barney Rubble up there. It don't matter. Give me my
So you a reparationist.
The focus should never be on whether we like Trump or not. The hell with all them clowns. You heard Biden call them a clown. They clowns. Man, just give us our money. Which one of y'all gonna move towards that? That's the focus we need to have.
But it would be great to have a president say that they were for reparations, but unless we get a reparationist Congress, reparations will never manifest. That has
absolutely.
I want to say this real quick. So we should have, like how we had this presidential debate. We need to have, like, when I say we, I'm talking about ADOS, and our focus should be how we can live stream these congressional debates, because we're going to need reparationist Congress people. So like, we looking at this right now, but this is not finna manifest right now. So moving forward, like I think this might be a good idea for us. When we moving forward, we need to identify ADOS. Need to go look at every congressional district, go look at House of Representatives and candidates. And push, take a position. Are you a reparationist or are you an anti-reparationist? And anti-reparations includes a person that's going to stall and procrastinate on reparations, because if it ain't about manifesting it, it's about not manifesting it or
Facts.
denying us justice, right? So we need to go through the Congress and say, make these people get on record with their position. Then when it's time to see who we're going to support, we need a national support. It needs to be a list of national support. And hey, if you got an ADOS platform or whatever, a reparationist platform on YouTube, whatever, we need to be live streaming these debates. We need to be putting a national attention on getting these reparationist Congress people elected and getting the ones that's anti-reparations not elected or out of office.
Yeah, that's the only way we become competitive in what you're talking about is if we can start being able to remember our political statistics the way we can remember NBA statistics. We know everything about Kobe and you know everybody else. You know what I'm saying? I don't really watch basketball, so I only know a couple current ball players. You know what I'm saying? LeBron James and them. You know what I'm saying? Until you can know your senators, the wealth, until you know the wealth data. Until you understand that the only way we can be competitive in the real game and government is the real game and politics is how it is.
And let me say this. Let me say this. I think that's grim. Let me say this. Antonio Moore did an excellent breakdown on the so-called platinum plan that this man just put forward and really went through explaining how that particular thing was really like Brother Dre said earlier, it's really like a real advertisement for like putting people in a bunch of loans, basically putting black people in a bunch of debt, you know. And so I think just to the point that you're making in terms of knowing the data, our people really need to begin to get informed about the data. And one of the things that Dr. Darity has done, one of the things that Antonio Moore even has done, even Yvette Carnell, is help to really lay out the data in terms of where we are as a group in this society. And I think until people, again, like Dre was saying earlier, until people really begin to see our position in this country, like Tone says, there's a $100 trillion wealth gap. A racial wealth gap that's $100 trillion deep. Until our tribe of people begin to really understand that, and that starts to sink in, they're not going to understand the importance of this congressional focus that we're talking about. You know?
Yeah. Well, they will after the violence happens, right? And, after the violence, things become clear. You know what I'm saying? So when the smoke clears, you can see things that you didn't see before the smoke appeared. And I just want to say something else because I got experience in breaking down this political language. Law and order, historically, when said by conservatives, is code for white supremacy violence. It's code for violence. When they say law and order, they mean let's go bust some heads. That's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Law and order have we experienced in this country? Because let me tell you something. There's a clear distinction between law and order and justice. All I want to hear about is justice. I don't want to hear nothing about no law and order. Law and order is iron hand oppression historically for ADOS people. And until you look, you have to analyze everything from an ADOS perspective. Just how back in the day we all got into Afrocentrism and they said we have to look at everything through an Afrocentric point of view. You have to look at everything in American politics as an American descendant of slavery, someone who's passed through Jim Crow, chattel slavery, all this stuff. We have to analyze everything through an ADOS perspective. And law and order means busting heads. Law and order means Jim Crow. Yep. Law and order means lynching. Law and order means hoses and dogs and mace and bullets. And all of that. That's what law and order means, especially when it's coming out the mouth of conservatives. You have to understand that.
Right. Yeah, law and order was slave catching, right?
Right.
Fugitive slave, activity. And it was, but that was not justice.
No.
You just like you said, a mouthful right there, bro. You said
exactly.
Was
that's basically
justice,
right. And that's basically too what I was, expressing to the brother. We were saying basically the same things and maybe a few different words, a few different points and stuff. It's basically dog whistles, cat calls to the far right to do these things. And we just look over and over again, man. You can just, thank God for the cell phone, not just for police activity, but just the way, our fellow white citizens, basically have been treating us. Of course, since the foundation of this country, but more specifically in recent times since this Trump administration. And a lot of these people have basically been emboldened to do the things that they do. So I agree with Logic 100% that when you start asking able-bodied people, go to the polls, watch the polls.
Yo, why? What does that mean? Come on, Grant. Able-bodied, able to do what? Able to do what? All you need to do to watch the polls have vision.
Did y'all peep?
Right. Right.
Look, did y'all peep though? When he was asked to denounce
he did not.
white supremacists, right?
He didn't do it.
He did not. He skirted. He said, name them. And then Chris Wallace, I believe, said the Proud Boys, right? And he never denounced them.
Check this out.
He never denounced them.
Me and Where L have military backgrounds, right? Notice the language of what he said, Naheem. He said, Proud Boys. What I'm trying to say, he said, Proud Boys, stand down and stand by. Woo. Stand by.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said.
Have totally different meaning to me and Where L than it does to the average person. Stand by means one in the chamber. You follow what I'm saying? Stand by means have that cable already. So I mean, man, hey, I'm speechless, man. When he talked about that Way L when he didn't denounce those white supremacists. And this man very well may win this election. I don't know.
I see it. To me, all signs are pointing to a Trump re-election, no matter how. But that's what America needs. America does not need we need to hit this wall. Because if you look at it, we almost were there, right? And we get to this. We get to these points in America. And look at what happened during George Bush Jr. You had the 9/11 happen. You had the horrible, horrible mishandling and nefarious, intentional, criminal negligence on behalf of what happened of the failed administration of George Bush on how they handled that Katrina situation. I met my best friend because they were some of the people who had to move up out of the French quarters. You understand? The way he let people die. They called the Superdome the Terror Dome. The way people were dying out there, floating in the water. We've been here before. I think we have short-term that during that time, and there was no real social media presence then either. But I think if it was a YouTube, Facebook, Twitter world, then we would have already been where we're at right now. Because that was a hellacious time we experienced then. Then the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. All that stuff George Bush Jr. did, Trump, to me, is a lightweight.
Hold up.
Exactly.
What about the housing collapse?
All of that, and then the housing collapse.
The $29 trillion bank bailout.
Trump just talks a lot of stuff and riles people up. When we talk about real structural damage in the body toll and the body count, George Bush Jr. was a mother.
Yes.
I mean,
I just get the feeling that Trump is one of those that's like, hold my beer. He would tell George Bush, hold my beer. So
I think what a lot of people don't understand is that if you look at Trump's first run against Hillary, and if you look at, even though he was this debate, he was not good at being an orator this time. But one thing Trump does better than most politicians is he shines the mirror back in America's face, i.e., when he said to Biden, it was your boy Obama who gave me those tax cuts. Now, if you remember when he debated Hillary,
that was powerful.
When he debated Hillary, he said to Hillary, yeah, my business is in China, and it was your husband who started NAFTA who gave us the opportunity to go to China.
Yep, he breaks the rules.
And he said that, and he said just like this: if I'm a businessman and you're allowing me to get cheaper labor, of course I'm going to get cheaper labor. He said that in their debate.
Right.
So, once again, people don't recognize that Trump, is like the old saying goes, and we've all heard this: he's silly, but he's not stupid. And the
Nah.
one thing he is he is the mirror back at the oligarch's face, which he is an oligarch, but he's the mirror saying, "Oh, you don't like me, then you don't like yourself." That's,
you see, let me
and listen what he said. Listen what he said to Biden when he was like, he kind of got tongue tied, but he said, in your testimony when you wrote the crime bill, remember he started jumbling his words, but he kept saying 1994. You remember what you said? Your testimony, because he knows that. Think about it. Let's look at Biden real quick. Corn pop and the whole black men wear a condom and the whole
hairy legs. The children was touching my hairy legs in the pool.
Exactly. So like right. So we don't like. At the end of the day, I always tell people, because I'm around a lot of white people with money, and I always tell black people, white supremacy in the mirror is white mediocrity. If you look in the mirror, your left is right and your right is left. If you ever show a white person that they've been undergirded since the government has become a powerhouse, they've been undergirded in every single aspect of business and life. White supremacy is white mediocrity. This is why white supremacy does not really become accountable for their wrongdoings. It's always us. Pull up your pants, get a job, boy. Like you could just walk outside and just get a job. Like I always tell black women who be getting on black men. If you think a man in his 30s want to be in front of a liquor store going do that, like you stupid. Like what black man? Think about what black man in his 30s being driven past by Dominicans and white people with Bentleys and Mercedes driving past them, and they in the liquor store saying it's hard out here, boss. Like nah, you think we want to do that? Like it's just it's an ignorance, man. It's just an ignorance.
If we look at this thing, you said something important, right? And it made me think of this. If we look at things through the lens of wealth, right? And what the real difference is you just articulated and show how what the difference is with Trump is he doesn't play by the rules that they're used to, right? They're having this silent agreement where we all know what goes on behind closed doors, but we're not going to talk about in the public. Trump can say, I don't care. I'm going to say whatever I want. Why can he do that? The difference is because Joe Biden's net worth is netting around 9 million and Trump is about 2.5 billion. That's why, because he's the elite. So what you use, and I've said this to my brothers in private before over and over, what we're used to seeing on the normal is politicians who are really captured by the corporate elites. But what we have now in Trump is the corporate elite said, I'm going to run myself. I'm sick of paying for, poor representation. I'm going to just run myself and I'm going to do it myself. He just said, I'm going to do it. So he is the elite that came and said, I'm going to do it. That's why he can talk to the moderator however he wants. He can talk because he probably owns some of the company in some dark fund somewhere, some shell company, probably owns some of the company that is even airing the debate tonight. He can say whatever he wants to Joe Biden because he's worth a measly 9 million. And Trump's not even talking wild. He could really talk wild if he wanted to, and they know that. That's why they're taking it like that.
Yes. Like I always tell people, if it wasn't for COVID-19, Trump moonwalks into office. Don't act like before COVID-19 that they even had a viable candidate for the Democrats to go against Trump. They were scrambling.
That's a fact.
They were scrambling.
That is a fact.
Because don't forget that first debate with Bernie, all the Democrats were looking at him like, well, how are you going to pay for this? How you going to pay for this? And then you got Kamala, who didn't know that Fife Dog was dead, and she's on every radio station sounding like a fool. Oh, I smoke weed, but I lock people up for it. Fife Dog is my favorite rapper. They're like, Fife been dead for like 5 years. Oh, yeah. Well, Tupac, it's just like everything was just literally a minstrel show. And it wasn't until COVID-19 came and shook up America. And just like how gas came in 2008, when gas went up to like $8 a gallon, where it showed people that you were broke. The one thing COVID showed you again, you're broke. And the reason why I always hark back on the fact that our biggest problem is that we don't know our position is the simple fact that when y'all were on Garfield's show, if you think about most of their argument points is that they think they're okay. We don't really need.
Yes, brother. Yes, bro.
I got gas in my car and I got rice in my beans, and it's just like, all right, whatever, man. Like I don't argue with them no more. Like I told Laura Abbott, I used to be on Garfield's show all last year, arguing, cutting them down. But then I thought about it one day because I had this. Garfield had actually was the day after Garfield and Abbott debated, and I took on all of Garfield. This one, Garfield just had people call in, and me and him talked for about 20 minutes. And I showed how Obama was the worst, and I showed how we was broke. And then I said, well, why can't we work together, allies and Native Black Americans, to get reparations? And why can't we do that for you at CARICOM? Why can't we do that for you in London? And you know what the next caller said? The next caller was a Black Haitian American and said, tell the guy who you was on the phone with, don't son me. Don't son me. And you know what I did? I called right back and I said, I'm sorry, y'all, we ain't getting reparations. If you're going to ignore the fact that I said, why can't we work together and try to do it? And then you call me and say, don't son me. I'm like, you ain't getting it. That's because you're just showing that it's a money thing. It's not about a together thing. It's about as long as you get crumbs on your plate, then you fine. And when you think like that, then you're never going to win. Because once again, and y'all can start saying this to all your friends, white supremacy in the mirror is white mediocrity. That's a fact.
Well, I tell him he can go to hell. We getting ours. We gonna fight to the death.
Who's saying that? Garfield?
He can go to hell.
No, Garfield didn't say that. It was a caller.
Whoever that caller was, he can go to hell.
Garfield is saying that though.
I mean, Garfield simply feels that the government will never give us cash payments. And you know what? He has his right. I'm at the point now that I understand the sickness of Black Americans. I understand I've been lucky to travel the world, and I know how people in a lot of countries live. That's why I know why I'm broke. And I understand a lot of these people are literally living vicariously through their favorite rapper, through their favorite athlete, through their favorite actor. And when you live vicariously through them, you think you got money until it's your time for your bills to be paid, until you're part of the eviction crisis. And then it's like, we need reparations. Because if you think about the last two shows that y'all were on, and I jumped on afterwards, their talking points were basically all talking points of why we need it, but then telling you that we don't need it. So it's like, okay, so we don't need it. I ain't no problem.
It don't make sense. And I just wanted to build on something you mentioned real quick. You mentioned when you look at when you talk about when you put white supremacy and white capital today in the mirror, you can see really white mediocrity. When you look at the fact that this is coming from a report that came out called The Road to Zero Wealth. It came out several years ago. I think it was like 2017. And then this graphic just shows anybody's heard the statistic that came out that we always use when we talk about the middle Black family. After you take out depreciating assets, is only worth $1,700. I saw that first here. I heard, I think, Antonio Moore first say it, but I saw it in this report. But this is talking about government boosts and blocks to building wealth. And it shows like right here, just look at this part where it says pre-1776 land to colonists. Then the 1790 Naturalization Act, 1849 gold rush claims, 1853 preemptive acts, the Homestead Acts. Now, and then open doors of European immigration. See, a lot of the people that you debating with, and they talking about white, and they think they're white supremacists, and they want to trace they want to argue with you about something, and with the Confederates and all this kind of stuff. A lot of these people came way over here, open doors of European immigration. They ain't even come back. They don't even come back over here where it was foundational white European Americans. But they want to jump into and hold on to whiteness like they do, right? But another thing is we got to understand that the Homestead Acts, it was several Homestead Acts. It was one in 1862. That was one that some of us got access to. It was more Homestead Acts that came out later. I want to say it was like 20% of the wealth of white American families. They can trace their origins of wealth building back to these Homestead Acts alone, where 160 acres of land was given out to these families at the same time of them denying us 40 acres and a mule. Ain't that crazy? So you got 20% of families in America tracing their rewards as a well building to this government handout. I ain't even get to the New Deal yet. I ain't even get to the New Deal for FHA loans, Social Security, labor rights, GI Bill, all this kind of stuff. We was locked out.
Right. Well, let me say this real quick, Josh. So expounding on that, right? Let me show you something that's going to blow most people's mind. So Homestead Act, right? So you look at Warren Buffett, his parents, right? And his parents. Then you look at Ted Turner, who owned like most of Montana, right? Understand that. I always tell people this. When I'm around rich white folks, right? I always ask them how they got rich. And you know what they tell you? Nothing. Because you know why? It's either through slavery or government program. Point blank, period. These are not geniuses. These are not dynamic thinkers. These are not the inventors of the wheel. These are people who literally got a handout and made the most of it. Period. Let me show you something. I was talking with in Abanoa. I was talking to a dude that's been on Garfield's show on I'll be teaching him stocks. I've tried to teach him anyway. My man Sabio, and Sabio's telling me his economic condition. He's in St. Louis, right? So I showed him something. I said, St. Louis, Missouri itself is all old money, right? Now, let me show you this. The reason why you understand, let me show you this. Wealth position. I'm going to give you something a lot of people don't know. This is how deep I go into wealth, right? So if it's, let's say it's 370 million people total in the United States, right? Round figure, right? There's only like 350,000 black millionaires. Let me show you something. How many millionaires you think in America is under the age of 50, all colors? How many millionaires you think? What percentage of the population you think are under the age of 50? And that's white, black, Asian, anything you want. How many you think?
3.
Bro, it's less than 1% of millionaires that's under the age of 50. You know what that means? That's the rise of legacy. You know what that means? That's why the Forbes article said in the next 10 years.
You going in and out, brother. It's like you moving away from your microphone.
My bad. I'm not moving away, but this. Oh, you know what? Hold on. My bad. You can hear me now?
You sound clearer now.
All right, so that's why, like I said, it's less than 1%. And that's why the Fed's article said in the next 10 years, white millennials will inherit 10 trillion and we will inherit nothing. Why? Because after those 50 years, 60 years, 70-years die, that money now is transferred down into them. And we have Nathan, nada. Once again, the pandemic showed you, right, that we are in a position that not only we don't live check to check, we live by check. We need like 2 checks to be normal. Forget check to check. So think about this. A lot of white people were stabilized because of their inheritance, because of their transfers, because of just gifting from parents. Black people is living hand to mouth, right? This is why I don't argue no more about black people. If you think you got money, I'm like, hey, I'm good. Because it's like, why we keep talking about the same thing? Listen, what is wrong with us saying we are broke? I don't understand the problem with it. I was lucky. I had a father that worked for Nabisco. I had a mom that worked for a pharmaceutical company. They wasn't on drugs. You know what I'm saying? You don't understand? All I had to do was go to school, be a nerd, come home, watch Saved by the Bell, do my homework, go to school the next day. That's it. But how many kids, because I was born in the 80s, so how many kids I went to school with, I didn't realize, damn, why ain't trying to go to school today? Because his mom smoking crack, Dre. The lights was off last night. That's why he couldn't find his clothes. Understand we are in that position and nobody wants to tell the truth. Me, right. I'm like, I hear you. I don't argue no more. I don't.
So this is what
you see these people. Oh, my bad.
Oh, come on. What you got?
Now, I was just going to say what it is like you said, they're living vicariously through these entertainers and ball players, and they see this thing that these guys are talking about, black excellence and all of that kind of stuff. And so it's a lot of aspiration and like the bootstrap mentality. And I even that particular mentality coming out of the Nation of Islam, we can do for self, and we can fix this whole thing. All of this trick bag, this whole trick bag that our people have been put in, we can fix it ourselves by just circulating the dollar within the black community. You know, it's a bunch of nonsense.
It's
so
nonsense.
You know, people getting it from a lot of different directions.
Yeah, and so like what I was saying, right? We have to understand, like, even though in these last couple of years the wealth data has been magnified and put a lens on it like never before, what we have to do, and COVID has kind of arrested our ability to really get out there, right? But whenever we can, we have to do more wealth symposiums, right? We have to take this show on the road whenever we can. And this is what everyone has to be talking about: the wealth gap. Period. Everything is about closing the wealth gap. Period. That's our economics. Period. How are we going to close the wealth gap? And it's not a national thing, because we have to understand we are going to be. They thought they was going to. And when I say this, I'm not joking. I'm not being figurative. They wanted ADOS to be extinct as a specific group in this country, literally. That's why they emancipated us into homelessness and poverty. And anyone who would hire us and pay us a fair wage, they wanted to murder them. They threatened to kill them and us. So they thought we were going to die out. We're still here, right? So they say, you know what, we're just going to lock them out, and then they'll naturally just die off by not being able to survive in capitalism, right?
Correct.
Having capital, we'll just starve them out. We're still here. We have to get our heads on straight and understand that everything has to be laser focused about not just economic inclusion, because now the gap is so large. We can't just be included now. We have to shrink that gap at the mean and not the median, right? You got something about the mean. That's not it. We gotta close it at the mean. We understand and understand that the why. They talked about the why and how the gap was created through these land grants, these acts of government, which given out 160 acres of land to white families. At the same time, they was taking land from us, right? This is what this is what created this gap. And it kept going on. The GI Bill, federal housing loans, all this stuff that we were locked out of. It's the only thing, and you can't do for self out of that, because government picks the winners and the losers. And as long as government is picking these people, we're going to continuously lose this game, no matter how smart you are, no matter how much education you get, no matter how talented you are on the basketball court or the gridiron. It's not going to matter, because it's not going to be enough of us generating wealth to transfer it to our children. And as long as, and this other play that they've had, everyone has this me. We don't have a family concept no more. So what happens when they separate your mind from thinking family's important? Birthright ain't even in your thinking. That's not even in your imagination. Because you're not even thinking about creating families and building families, because one is too hard to make ends meet. You don't even want a family. You don't even want to be burdened with that. So now they destroyed your ability to even produce lineage. They destroyed your ability to even produce families and have transfers through the family line. So like this thing that we have to understand, that we have to take this wealth data on the road. It has to be the most talked about conversation in Black families. What are we going to do about them? Just like civil rights were. The wealth is the only conversation.
Hold up.
Yep.
This just came in. NBC News is reporting that the Proud Boys say that they are standing down and standing by after Trump's debate performance.
Wow.
Y'all see what I'm saying now, bro? It's like Brother Dre said. I think it was Brother Dre that said that man is not stupid.
No, and they speak in code, and that's why I follow the QAnons. I'm in all these groups, so I know they got code, because they talk about it all day. I talk in Republicans for Trump. I'm in the groups. I'm watching them talk, because I know that I better be watching them. So they listen to every Trump speech, and they have these code words and these code phrases. So when they say stand down and stand by, that means waiting on further instructions. You understand? When you say stand by, they're waiting on further instructions. When Trump openly in the public said that he's going to suppress the vote. He said, I'm going to suppress votes. When you mail them in, that's too many to count. Damn him. He said that's too many to be counting. He said he's going to suppress the votes. But you understand this reality when you live in a state like Georgia, where they actually allowed the governor, who was the person who was the secretary of usually you have to vacate office, but they let this man who was running for governor count the votes. The Secretary of State counts the votes. They let this man be the Secretary of State, not only be the Secretary of State and run for governor and count the votes at the same time, but he had already lost a court case where he was found guilty of destroying and terminating over 100,000 votes already. This is America, family.
This is America.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, man. The bottom line is the line of demarcation is money. That's why I don't let no one tell me money's not important. The line of demarcation is money. Money breeds power. Money breeds industry. Money breeds agency. Period. And if you think, like I say, take wealth from white people, they're literally blithering idiots. But with it, they make every decision. They be like, look, you can listen. You can be the best carpenter in your union. Let the lead shop steward, dope addict nephew come into there. Don't even have an apprenticeship. Oh, he's trying to get his life together. Give him a hammer. That's just how it works.
You know, two movies come to mind when you say that, right? One is, I think it's called The Game with Sean Penn. And they just play this game with him and they take everything from him. And they know exactly what he's going to do. Jump off a roof. And they got everything already set up to whereas when he jumps off the roof, he's, you know, he lands on something inflated. Another movie is Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. And we see what happened with us. I mean, we already lived at the bottom of the bottom. So yeah, living at the top was nice, but we are survivors through this thing. But when you took the wealth away from the white man, you see what happened to him. He went crazy. He put the gun to his head. And what saved him is that the gun that he brought from a pawn shop, a janky ratchet, right, didn't go off. It went off when he threw it and it hit the ground and it popped off one. So he was like, yeah, I can't even kill myself, right? So then he take a whole bunch of that. To me, that's my favorite social experiment movie ever. I don't think that there's one better. But, you know, just to touch on what Brother Dre was just saying, you know, those movies are art imitating life. And and in a real quick, in another sense, they are so used to being on top financially that they don't want to see us come up. They're used to looking that they need what Scarface said. You need a bad guy like me so you can point your effing fingers at, because deep down inside your heart is just is super black, right? So when we look at Matt Brunig, who helped do some of the reports with Antonio Moore and Dr. Darity. I don't know if you follow on Twitter, Dre, but Twitter is where it's popping at, bro. If you don't have your Twitter account popping, you need to come on over to Twitter, bro.
No, I've been at Twitter. I fell off, but like I
you need to
get up with Yvette on Tyreek though. I'm with her.
Okay, you need to link up on Twitter and stay linked. That's where the political battles are, the real political battles are happening at. So Matt Brunig, who and you're familiar with the name, he helped put some of the data together. So once he started to realize that Dr. Darity's plan was closing the wealth gap at the mean of $800,000, he started to realize. He put out a series of tweets, which I heard he later deleted because ADOS swarmed him. And in those series of tweets, this man basically said, we can't do this reparations thing because then the blacks are going to catch up to us. That is what he said in a nutshell. So, you know, we got so many different factors working against us, and this is why we got to stay in the fight. We have to stay in the fight, and I can't wait for Thursday to come when Garfield comes on, if he's still going to come on. I don't know if Reggie is going to have the gall, the gumption to step up into an arena that he can't control, but we're going to go in. we are gonna go in. So look, we're coming up on 3.5 hours, family. I mean, I pretty much chilling, just letting the family just go in. It's a lot of us on the panel.
Let me just say this real quick too, Abba.
Go ahead, bro.
Before it slipped my mind. Another thing, I want to say, which I did last week, and I text you this personally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this what we all got to do too, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. When you see silly niggas like Umar talk that foolishness, like Umar blocked me so many times. He'll block me and create another account to respond to me because I can't stand Umar. He is literally like, I hate polite, but I hate Umar. Like, I hate Umar. Because Umar is like, I never seen nobody that quote more Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey without quoting them. He'll keep saying, I'm a Garveyite. Well, what's the solution? He'll never tell you the solution. But ADOS don't mean nothing. I'm a Garveyite. What does that mean, bro? What does that mean? Like,
there is not even no Garveyite organization that's solving and moving with membership and actually doing anything. What does that mean?
Exactly. And that's my point. Like, we have to now mobilize not only against these politicians, but against all these guys that keep creating this distraction. Right? Because you'll have, like, think about this, y'all. I was just talking, I think I was talking to you, Abba. I was talking to somebody. Like, think about how you got a man who's singing off key, he's chubby, and he's literally selling himself as a sex symbol. And Tariq, like, this nigga made a song called I Want Jello, and he's our political leader? Like, that shit is crazy.
Hey, man, that's a big problem, and if I could say real quick, as a look at Josh.
Oh my gosh, I thought I put my camera off, man. Bad. That.
Hey, so I agree with Brother Dre 100%. And y'all know that I've always been talking about that since our involvement with another organization that we was part of. I'm not gonna go into it, but it really bleeds into the fabric of all of this stuff. And in certain cases, in certain situations, man, we have to blame the populace as well.
Yeah.
Because it's the populace that gives Tariq Nasheed his power.
Facts.
So really, man, it's a character deficiency, man, in a lot of the populace that don't have the understanding or don't have the clarity to see that a lot of these people are just problems. And I think it's a quote, man. Me and Brother Wade L, talk about it all the time. And it's a quote by Booker T. Washington. I'm not gonna quote it in its entirety or exactly word by word, but he said that even way back then, Booker T. Washington said there are people who make money and make a name for themselves off of the suffering and the degradation of the Negro. And when you read that quote or whatever, if somebody want to pull it up, if you read the quote, it's exactly what's going on today. But it's like KRS One say. Remember what I said the other day, y'all? What KRS said? A bunch of suckers with colorful names. I'm so and so. I'm this. I'm that.
Yes, sir.
They all just whack. So that's really what we got going on with these polites and these Dane Callaways and
man,
Grand Sheik this, Grand Sheik that. I mean, man, I just pray to the Almighty Sustainer, man, that he just moved these guys out the way, man, because Martin Luther King, Malcolm X had his fair share of problems. That was jealousy within the NOI. But man, the civil rights leaders of the past didn't have all these colorful clowns to contend competing for the attention and the hearts and the minds of. There was no Tariq Nasheeds and stuff walking around. I mean, they probably had them, but the character
of the
They,
product.
they knew they
Tyreek
lane.
will laugh at his own joke before he does the joke. Like you watch a Tyreek video, he laughs at himself before he tell you the joke. I'm like, yo, nigga, just at the end of the day, the problem is you got one guy selling you a school who's homeless. You got another guy who sells you DVD after you crowdfund it to sell you Banaka and pepper spray. Then you got another guy.
Goon juice.
Yo, it is literally becoming a circus, because what happens is you have a lot of people now just awakening, right? So when you're just awakening, you are susceptible to all of this like buffoonery, right?
Right.
And it's like, you understand, because like, I had to tell one of my boys on Facebook today. He was posting RZA Islam. I said, my nigga,
Yeah,
what
RZA
are you
Islam
talking
is
about?
so.
Like, I'm
he
like,
is
bro,
so
what are
pseudo.
we talking about, man? Like, y'all dudes, I had a argument with a Hebrew Israelite, right? So he says to me, we had a debate. What's more important, money or his God? And I showed him. So then he said to me, yo, what he said? He said, well, they about to value currency. It's going to turn into gold. I said, well, do you own gold? He said, no. I said, then what are we fucking talking about?
Like, what are we talking about?
You know what I did, Logic? I showed him my phone and showed him how much gold I own. I said, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
He said, I don't got gold. I said, what are we talking about, King?
Yeah. What are you talking about? I do that same thing. It's funny because I do that same thing with people. Like, do you own gold? And then I'll pull up either my Webull or my Robinhood, and they'll be like, I own gold. Look at this. It's easy. Why don't you own gold? You want
exactly.
Exactly.
For all these people that keep telling me, and I tell people, we have this argument on my stock class. I say, if y'all think, because I tell people all the time, if you devalue currency, if you say the dollar is gonna, if they say tomorrow in the news the dollar's worth absolutely nothing, if a person drive past you in a Bentley and he's white, you're gonna pull him right out the car because you're gonna be like, you ain't got no money. Your money's my money. We ain't got nothing. So why you got a Bentley and I'm catching a bus? Do you understand the anarcho mindset that it would go through? You understand where I'm coming from? People don't understand that balance of the money gives you a literal tier of life, right? This is why they keep you at the bottom, keep themselves at the top. This is why when there's a stimulus package, you get the crumbs, they get the cake.
Let me say this, right? Because let's dial it back real quick, right? Because we talked about how did Nasheed's and Umar's, because Umar, you a psychiatrist, you should be doing psychiatry. You shouldn't be doing this, right? How did there become a lane? How did this become a lane? Where did the on ramp and come in? So we had the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense was probably the last real movement that we had, something that was real. Then we were destroyed by the crack epidemic, followed by mass incarceration, right?
Yep.
That left a big couple decades gap to be filled. So now the only people who is out here that's kind of, so I'm talking about assassination, COINTELPRO shutting down real grassroots movements and organizations trying to fight for the advancement of our people. We took major L's, right? We took major advancements, but then the counterattack came and we took major L's, right? They killed King, they killed Malcolm, they destroyed the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, they assassinated Brother Fred Hampton. You understand? So, right, like Ashada Shakur and them had to flee the country and all kind of stuff, all kind of crazy stuff happened, right? But right before then, we was making crazy moves, right? And you couldn't be just no weak kind of anybody talking about anything moving into this space, because it was some real things happening in America with Black folk. Black politics was a serious thing. You couldn't play with it. So after that, now there was that they left a void. So that's when you had people like this just start popping up and say, you know what, there's a lane over here. I can make money doing this. So they seemed like that none of the stuff that we needed went anywhere. The issues were still there. So now they say, you know what, I can come and pander to this, right? The dissatisfaction, the dysfunctionality, and I can monetize it. And that's what they did. They monetized our pain and suffering. They monetized our damage and dysfunction, And now you got clowns like Tariq Nasheed. I never was impressed with him. I never listened to him much. He's always been a clown to me. And that's not no knock against anybody who follows him under the FBA hashtag and whatnot. I don't know. I just don't understand why y'all follow him. I don't know none of y'all personally, really. So I don't got no issue with y'all. He's not an impressive person, though. So I don't understand why y'all follow the man. He's not impressive. He's not a serious man. He's not a scholar. We watched him get cleaned up by easy, lightweight white dude, getting cleaned up.
Cleaned up, man.
He's a
Yo,
clown.
yeah, on Fox.
It's similar. It's a similar reason. It's a similar reason why people kind of follow behind Trump. You know, he's an entertainer. He's a marketer.
Yeah. Hey,
there's a lot of parallels there.
Back when Hidden Colors, the first one came out, I ain't even gonna go into all of that because man, that's
another con. We gotta get to wrapping it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna go because
we about almost 4 hours in, man. 3 hours and 39 minutes in.
Come back, bro.
Yeah, but that's why these discussions they're perpetual. That's why we stay on for so long, because the rabbit hole, I think Josh said it, the rabbit hole is so deep that you have to kind of like, that's why I say you start at the weeds, man. You got to get rid of the Tyreeks. You got to get rid of the, boys are silly. I don't really pay attention to boys, but you got to get rid of the Umars. You got to get rid of, like, who else is one of them fake? All of them. Like, you just got to, like, eliminate them, man, because it becomes toxic. Oh, man.
Young Pharaoh, definitely.
Abba know how I feel about Pharaoh, man.
The news just came out that the King Face dude passed away, so he's no longer an issue.
Mute your mic, Logic. Mute your mic.
Yeah, because I'm just going to go ahead and sign off. I appreciate this was a very good discussion. I wish we could do it all night. Brother Jay, you sound like you BTP material. You can come back anytime, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, y'all know, before I go, because I'm out, man. Y'all have a good one, man.
All right, bro. Peace.
All
right, family. Thanks everybody that tuned in. Thanks everybody that gave donations in the chat. This is what we're supposed to be doing now. This is one thing I always say is that I learned more during Trump's presidency than I've learned during Obama's presidency. And the emotional polarization that has been created around Donald Trump, whether you are being programmed to hate him or programmed to love him, has broadened the political conversation in ways that we've never had in the past. Well, I can't say never had, but at least in my lifetime growing up, So we have that now. And we are now talking about it. And people are now starting to listen. And now they're starting to get the idea, man. This dude, even, I kind of understand what Unc was saying to a degree. I don't think that dude is cool, but it's cats looking like, yo, I'm a gangster. This dude, Trump, is a gangster. Maybe I could be a president, which was one of the things that Malcolm X was said. There's one thing that America fears, and that will be the gangster that becomes political, that becomes politically intelligent. He said America will fear that type of person, and that's what you're starting to see now all across America. And so what we're doing as we help expand the message of American descendants of slavery via our platform, Be the Power, is helping to empower people with it by programming them with that thought as we program ourselves with it. So, Brother Grimm, Brother Ali, Brother Josh, if y'all want to close out, peace, word, anything.
I am a reparationist.
I am a reparationist.
Look, this brother Grimm, I just want to say one thing real quick about immigrant blacks in America. I don't have no problem with immigrant blacks in America, right? People from Jamaica, Caribbean, the island. I'm speaking on the last several debates that you all had with Garfield and those people. And you all don't. What I don't like, man, is how people invite you on their show, brother, and then they try to muddy the water with a whole bunch of different things. But let me say this, because I know we gotta go, right? Immigrants have come to America and they've basically like mixed in with us or whatnot, and they feel a part of the ADOS community because they were here. That's one thing. So they go through all of this modern racism. So they also feel that they are entitled to ADOS reparations when their family may have came here in the 80s,
Or
70s. Say again?
Or last week.
Or last week, right? That's unfair because their lineage don't go back to chattel slavery in the America, in the United States of America. I support them getting reparations from the crown. I support them getting it from the English government or whatever government set up those islands. I support that 1,000%. And we can help them get that on their end. But they're going to have to help us get our reparations on this end.
First.
And I think that a lot of our African brothers, a lot of our brothers from the islands, they get caught up in the money and they feel that they're not getting a check for themselves. So they feel that they have to enter this ADOS arena to disrupt what people who adhere to ADOS logic is saying, man. So that's all I want to say. I have absolutely no problem with the brother from the Caribbean, no problem with the brother from Africa. Just let us do what we have to do with this country, because ADOS, basically, our morals have been leading freedom struggles for everybody in the world. So let us do us.
Yes, indeed. Excellent. I agree 100%, man. That's our culture. Freedom fighters. We're not runners. And I know we talked about this, I think, earlier today. One of the things that we should be proud of is the fact that our people are fighters. Our particular tribal people are fighters, man. We're not runners. Every other group of people that is in the United States are people who have run from their countries of origin. Unlike us and maybe the Native Americans, if you want to count Native Americans. But our tribe, we're not the people who ran. So we're the fighters. And so what those people need to do is understand that about us and stand back. Like you said, Brother Grimm, stand back. Let us do us. Let us do our thing as the fighters that we are and continue this fight that has been going on since obviously before the Civil War. You understand what I'm saying? This is a long fight we've been dealing with. Let us do our thing. Don't come trying to get in the way of what we're doing.
Definitely. All right, fam. With that, I mean, we had a good one tonight. We did our first presidential debate, our first presidential analysis of that debate. We're going to keep striving to grow this platform. I want to give a shout out to everybody who donated tonight, man. Honors. We're going to use that to expand this platform. We are going to become, like the Young Turks have their platform for the progressives, we are going to be the platform for the reparationists. And I'm going to leave you all with the motto of our platform, and that is, don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace.